This is King Fowley from Deceased, and see you in the Tampa Morgue.
I've been waiting for you.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue, episode number 55, and officially season 2. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, the one and only Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, dude?
Mr. Anderson, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How did Tropical Storm Debbie treat you?
Down twigs, lots of
Nothing,
twigs.
right?
Yeah, well, I got a backyard full of branches and shit, but yeah, no flooding. I saw Sarasota got crushed. I feel bad for. I saw Kelly from Atheist was putting up a bunch of crazy shit, but yeah, dude, it was one of those, like, it rained here all day, brutal, and it's never really done that for a hurricane. It's usually it passes and it's done within a couple hours. His bitch lingered for 10 to 12 hours. It was brutal. And
I
I just
saw a
seen
lot
it.
of flooding.
I seen it went out and now it's come back in over South Carolina. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this fucking thing don't want to leave.
Yeah, it's that time of year, and last time we came to Florida, me and the wife and kids, there was hurricane season. I think our flight got, if I remember correctly, we got delayed. We were supposed to fly out. We had to wait a couple days because of the storm that went through there. So I don't miss those storms. But as I said, this is officially season 2, Ed. We've done 54 episodes in a year, and it's crazy that it's been a year. August 5th was actually a year. Man, it's, if you really think about it, time kind of flew.
It did, and we had a lot of killer people on too, so that was a bonus.
Definitely. Sure. And we're going to recap some of the season 1 really fast. We did open up the show. We played Deceased, Miss Allardyce from the movie Burnt Offerings. Remember that, Ed? 1976 with Karen Black, Oliver Reed, Betty Davis, where they buy that summer rental house. I remember when I was a kid. I mean, when you're a kid, that movie, it scared me, man. Now I watch it and it's a little different. But when I was a kid, it's a great flick. When the guy falls out of the window and fucking head bashes through falls out of the house and his head bashes through the car windshield and stuff. When I was a kid, that was pretty crazy. But season 2 we're going into, and we opened up the show with a Deceased track, Miss Allardyce, from the movie Burnt Offerings from '76. And we're actually going to be joined by King Fowley tonight, which is, probably about 10 or 15 minutes he'll be on with us. So we're definitely looking forward to talking to him. Ed, we said right from the beginning when we started doing this show that we wanted to get King on. So, it was.
It only took 55. Took 55 episodes.
We were getting started. There was a couple different dudes that we said, hey, these are the guys that we made a little list, me and Ed, and we were like, these are the guys that I actually want to get on the show that we grew up listening to and stuff. And King was definitely one of them. And I asked him, and it was no problem. I set it up with him. I didn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops or go through the labels and stuff like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to talk to him. But that song was actually off the Ghostly White record that came out on Hell's Headbangers. And we're going to talk to King. We'll talk all about that. But yeah, Ed, like I said, season 2 we're in now, man. And we've had a bunch of guests. I'm going to mention a list of them here, actually, to whoever hasn't heard the show before. They can always go back and listen. You can go back all on Spotify and all the places you listen to podcasts, or actually on YouTube too. We don't do video or anything, but I'm going to run through the list really fast. We had episode 4, we had Pat from Hell Witch. Episode 6, we had Vincent Crowley from Asheron. Episode 14, we had Bobby G from Overkill. Episode 10, we had Lord Aramon from Dark Funeral. Episode 12, we had Dave from Fathom, a Florida band. Episode 13, Blaine Cook from The Accused. Episode 14, David Howard Thornton, Art to Clown. Episode 18, Dave Austin from Nasty Savage, DNA. Episode 19, John Gallagher from Raven. Episode 21, Bill Owen from Purgatory. Episode 22, Count Gore Duvall from Creature Feature, the old TV horror host, also was Captain 20. Episode 23, Paul Speckman from Master, Deathstrike. Episode 26, Alvar from Caveman, Colt, Reapermancer, Jekador, I never say that right. He also owns Free Ride Studios. Episode 27, we had Dovinus from Crypts of Despair and Luctus out of Lithuania, the black metal band. Episode 28, we had Carl Kennedy from The Rods. Episode 29, Jim and Pat from Morbid Saint. Episode 31, Dawn of the Dead from Nunslaughter. Episode 32, Dave Greger from Mortis Scold. Episode 33, Kyle Thomas from X-Order, Trouble, and Floodgate. Episode 35, Snowy Shaw from King Diamond, Merciful Fate, Notre Dame, list goes on. Episode 36, Dallas Taller Wade from Nile, Narcotic Wasteland. Episode 38, Blood Serpent from Vietnam. Episode 39, Jamie Bailey from Bride of Quinn and Liturgy. Episode 40, Harry from Hooded Menace. Episode 41, Pooch from Raped Ape. Episode 42, our very own Ed Webb, a whole story of his whole story. Episode 43, Ryan Waste of Bat, Municipal Waste. 45, Pete Olin, books all the shows in Tampa, pretty much everywhere in St. Pete now, old friend. Episode 46, Lee Payne from Club and Hoof. 49, Chris Reifert from Autopsy. Chris, that was another great episode. Whoever hasn't heard that. Let me see. And episode 50, Gene from Perdition Temple, Angel Corpse. Episode 51, Bloody Mess from Bloody Mess and the Scabs. A bunch of other bands. And 53, Matt from Untimely Demise and Into Eternity. And then last week we had episode 54, Beelzebub from Mystic Circle. And there's a bunch of episodes in between that we did, but there's most of our guests we had. And like I said, tonight we have King Fowley coming on. We're also joined tonight by one of our, actually a guy that me and Ed are in a band with, call him Chicago Joe, but I've known this guy September 22nd, 2011. He emailed me looking for a job in a band. We made the mistake of bringing him on. We've been stuck with him.
I told you he played a fucking dime bag guitar. I told you to fucking 86 that dude. But you didn't listen. Joe? Just like the last jobber we had, you didn't listen.
I know. Sometimes you got to learn the hard way. What's up, Joe? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm glad to finally be on with you guys. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while.
Well, you sent your check. We told you it had to be here by noon, so we got it, and now you're allowed to join us. But yeah, we got Joe coming on. Joe's going to shadow us a little bit. If one of us ever have to miss, we've been on every show, man. We haven't missed one yet, but
we were close.
We were close tonight to someone missing on the show, so we didn't want that to happen. And I've known Joe forever. Ed's known Joe forever. We played with Joe. Joe, what part of Chicago are you from?
South Side. Bridgeport.
I've seen the White Sox are I think they lost 21 games in a row right now or something. I was just seeing on the TV, bombing.
It's crazy. All Chicago sports teams seem to be having issues. You know what I mean? It's an ongoing thing. You'd think somebody like Chicago would have more dynasty team kind of deal.
Yeah.
Why keep a quarterback that was actually pretty good? Let's send him to the Steelers for nothing. That was awesome.
You know what I'm saying? That's like a reoccurring issue.
Yeah, the Bears, that's probably the first Super Bowl I really remember is when they beat the Patriots. So that was I remember going to a Super Bowl party. I was a kid. They had the Super Bowl shuffle, and it was Jim McMahon, and it was a big deal. That was the last time I remember them actually being really good. But yeah, no, Joe, we appreciate you joining us, man, hanging out tonight. Joe's going to kind of sit back and kind of Ed does a lot of stuff that people don't see behind the glass on the show. He does a lot of that, edit work, and keeps track of stuff when it happens, so we can do what we have to do to fix it. So Joe's just gonna, kind of keep an eye out and see what, if we ever need him to back us up, he's gonna be there. Plus, Joe has some podcast stuff he's working on. So, like I said, we've known Joe forever. He's been playing with us for a long time in a band called Generic Christ, which actually we have a show coming up. I'm going to mention this Swarm Fest coming up November 22nd and 24th, the Brass Mug in Tampa. I got a list of some of the bands that'll be on there. You got Nasty Savage from Brandon, Pessimist from Baltimore and California. I guess they live in a couple of places, yeah. Those guys, yeah. Nocturnus AD from Tampa, Perdition Temple, Tampa, Promethean Horde, Tampa, Druid Lord Orlando, Generic Christ, that's St. Pete, Tampa, Sorcerer, Tampa, Carodia, which is they're South Florida, right? But I think they might have relocated. I don't know. Hibernus Mortis, Virulence from Tampa, Sadistic Force from Tampa, Formulus from Birmingham, Alabama, Tunnels of Set from Tampa, Sadistic Vision from Pennsylvania, and Reptile War Machine from Louisiana. So that's coming up on November 22nd through the 24th. We'll be playing on the 23rd.
Not going to lie. I got a bunch of shows coming up myself, but I don't know, man. Maybe because that itch, I haven't touched that fucking thing. It's over there in the case. It's got 4 strings. I don't even know what they call that anymore.
You play bass?
Yeah, that's not according to fucking everybody in this town. But yeah, I'm excited. I played the other day and my hands fucking hurt for 2 days. So that'll tell you how that works. Well, bass is a different animal anyway. Bass compared to guitars. People think you can just, if you play guitar, you can jump on bass. Sure, if you want to look like an asshole, but it's not an easy instrument to play, especially if you want to play it like a bass, like an actual bass player. Try to be Geddy Lee. You know what I mean? It's not doesn't work that way. But yeah, I'm excited. The show is going to be fucking awesome.
And you have some other shows coming up. You got a Monstrosity gig, what, in 2 weeks?
Next week, next Saturday.
And where are you guys playing at? And what's some of the bands on the bill? I know I saw
San Antonio. We're Dismember's playing Friday. We're playing Saturday, and if I saw it right, we're playing with Nasty Savage Saturday night. So that'll be pretty cool. There's a whole slew of bands that are like all throughout the whole thing, but the big bands are like Dismember, us, Nasty Savage. So that'll be cool. Yeah, that's next Saturday. So I'm not ready, but that'll be awesome.
And the Brass Mug Show, the Swarm Fest, will be, like we said, in Tampa on the 22nd through 24th. And they are adding a couple more bands. I do know a couple of the bands that will be adding, which is one of them is really killer, but they haven't announced it yet, so I'm not going to do it. Also on this show, we have next week, well, actually for us, Sunday, but we're going to put it out next week because we're trying to basically do one show a week. Yeah, space them. We have Mike Deanna coming on from, Mike did Boiled Angel, the old comic, and actually got arrested for his artwork. He's the only artist in America to ever get arrested for making a comic book. Mike's going to be coming on. His story is crazy. There's a whole documentary about him. He lived actually like a couple streets from me over in Largo, Florida, and they ran him out of town basically.
The amendments just aren't being followed to the Constitution, right? With this guy, I mean, they literally hammed this guy up, ruined him. I mean, I couldn't imagine losing my shit because I drew a comic that might be a little whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many comic books out there that are gory as fuck. I mean, even TV shows now, my wife's revisiting The Boys because the new season came out, and I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have not.
But it's on Prime. It's basically superheroes to the most vulgar shit, like heads exploding and fucking splitting dudes in half with laser vision. I mean, it's brutal. Like, how do you cancel one thing and allow this? So to me, we got some fucked up principles, man. But yeah, that dude got hemmed up, and that ain't right.
Yeah, he totally, because you know what it was is there was the Gainesville murders that happened, which we'll talk about all this with Mike when he comes on Sunday. And basically, like, they kind of blamed him at first. They saw the comics and they linked it to him. And even when they found out that it wasn't him, they still fucked him.
Yep.
They forced his family out of Largo, dude. It's crazy. I mean, there's so much shit. And I haven't seen him do many interviews, so I'm really glad he agreed to come on. I know he's living over in New York now, but that should be a really interesting episode. We're also going to
worst place to go besides California.
Yeah, he's born in New York originally. I relocated to Tampa area as a kid, I guess, and then he still does art. He does some album covers for Autopsy and stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to have him on the show. That's going to be really cool. We're also eventually going to be giving away some Ingve tickets. And that'll be, I think we'll figure that out this week and we'll run something next week for that. I'm trying to think what else we have going on. Anything besides, I think that's all we have, right? Cause you're going away. We're going to we're going to do the Mike episode, Mike Deanna, and then we're going to try to get one more in before you leave because you're going to be getting an operation. You'll be out for like a week. Yeah, so I mean, and you'll be back to normal, which is good, man, because as you get older, our shit starts falling apart.
It's finally doing it. He's getting.
That's why my plans changed today because the leg is no good. Like it's gotten worse in the last week, and I'm so glad that I booked it because I thought I could literally. My original plan was to do it after the Swarm Fest, so that there was no issues with any of the monstrosity shows. Because literally, I have 6 weeks of rehab before I have to fly to California. And this dude, the surgeon, he's like, piece of cake, dude. I'm like,
isn't that crazy?
That they're going to put a bionic hip on. When he showed me the thing, when he showed it to me, it literally looks like a bionic piece of metal.
Yeah. It'll be perfect, perfect for you. You're like,
I'm actually, believe it or not, the one thing I'm anxious is to run, just to be able to run. Because I told my wife last night that if we were being chased by zombies, I was dead because she could outrun me finally. So that sucks.
You know, with all the 3D scanning and the printing and all that, that fucking piece that they put in you is going to be better than your original. You know, like.
Yeah, well, he told me how they did it, and at first it freaked me out because they said he was, they pound that thing into your actual thigh bone. Like they glue it and they drill your fucking leg and pound it in there, and then that's it, and then the rest of it just gets put in like normal. But supposedly this is the easiest surgery ever. Like if you're gonna have one, so we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. I'm let's just say compared to where I am today, I'd rather be rehabbing right now and dealing with that pain than this bullshit because this sucks.
Yeah,
it does. And I got to play next week like this. Like I got to walk through an airport, and it's just.
Now, are you still going to wear the cowboy boots and leather pants for the monstrosity
Well,
gigs?
so Lee wanted me to. I have to wear them backwards, so so that you get to see the whole package. The twig end berries are going to be exposed. So you're in for a treat, San Antonio.
Ask the doctor if the scar will be visible from the assless chaps or not.
Well, we wouldn't see that till California because it's after that show. But you know what? I'll make sure you get a front row vision, Joe. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll be giving all your surgery updates here on the Tampa Morgue. And,
you got it.
And anybody who listens to us, I've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of really cool people writing us and just saying some really cool things. We've been around for a year now, which, like I said, it's insane to think that we've been doing this that long, because I remember me and Ed just starting to do it and being like, hey, let's try to do this, and we just kept on signing on every week and basically putting them out, and we really appreciate everybody that listens. Like I said,
the guests we've gotten, definitely appreciative of all the guests that we've gotten.
Yeah, we haven't dealt with everyone we've dealt with has been awesome. And, and like, again, with tonight, man, having King on, to me, is I grew up a Deceased fan. I love Deceased, and I think King is he's the anti-rock star guy. I mean, you just don't see that in him, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, man, if I thought that if Bloody Mess didn't get us canceled, King may be the next one. So we'll see.
He's just honest, man. I mean, that's what
I mean is usually when you're honest to a fault, that's when you get canceled. The honest people are the ones that people don't want honesty. They don't want to hear the truth. It's a fact,
And the great thing about him is he doesn't give a shit. It's
good for him, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be 40 years next year for Deceased. He's been rolling, man. It's 40 years. They have a new album coming out on Hell's Headbangers, which we'll talk about all that. Like I said, we opened the show with Deceased, Miss Allardyce, and then we're actually going to play now. We're going to play because we're going to set King up and get him on here and everything, because he's going to be on in a few minutes. We're going to play his other band, October 31. We're going to play Salem's Curse from the Fire Awaits You record that came out on RIP Records. That's out of Utah. They had bands like, I think Witchburner was on there from Germany, and Unholy Death from Poland, I believe they were from. And we're going to get King all set up. But yeah, this is October 31. And the song, like I said, is Salem's Curse. And we're going to have King on here when we come back. So everybody, thanks for listening to the Tampa Morgue. And we'll be back with King Fowley from Deceased in October 31 after this track.
In the middle of the 15th century, when superstition and ignorance reigned almighty across the land, men and women accused of witchcraft were burned at the stake, hanged from the gallows, or placed under the blade of the executioner. Pestilence, the most destructive plagues, war with its untold horrors, were not even as remotely feared as the dark power of Satan and his sinister followers of devils and witches.
That was October 31 that we just played with Salem's Curse off the 1997 album, The Fire Awaits You. And we are joined by King Fowley. What's up, man?
Hey, cheers to everybody. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for the support, brother, and the friendship.
No, man, we appreciate it. Like I was telling you off the recording that me and Ed, when we started this show, you were one of the guys on our list that we really wanted to get on. The great thing about you, which we actually talked about in the beginning of the show, is we didn't have to I got a hold of King and I'm like, hey, man, can I get you on the show? Who do I have to go through? And King's like, just go through me, man. No jumping through hoops, no middleman.
Yeah. A to B, brother. A to B.
Yeah,
it's no fucks giving guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean.
Gotcha. Right on.
Yeah, like I said, go 40 years next year. But we're going to talk about, want to talk about your history. Actually, a lot of people have been writing us. They're excited you're coming on because they know how we do the show. And we really, like I said, man, we want to thank you again for giving us your time tonight and hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
So you were born. Actually, were you born in Arlington, Virginia?
I was born in Fairfax, Virginia, which is the next town over from Arlington, Virginia.
Okay. And that was 68, right?
July 6, 1968.
Okay, and and so your father too was a Vietnam vet.
He was a Vietnam vet. He was a sergeant, and then he came out of the Army, and he was a weightlifter. He actually used to run with Steve Reeves, who played Hercules in the movies in the late 60s, early 70s. He was a bodybuilder, my dad, and then he started working as a tombstone carver at a place called Sullivan and Sons, which was
how ironic is that?
Yeah, it's crazy. He was one of the last hand sculptor kind of guys before they started going to the machines. He used to still kind of hit it with the hammer and sculpt the stuff. He did that, and he was also, weird as hell, he was also a singing drummer in a band called the Fender Benders.
Fender Benders. So
it was pretty weird stuff, but yeah, he was definitely in the Vietnam War.
And he met your mother in high school.
They were high school sweethearts, absolutely. I think if I'm right, I think they met in like 8th grade all the way through high school. They were together.
Okay, and and I don't want to start this interview on like a sad note, but obviously we know your father passed away. What was it, New Year's Day in '74?
It was. In my book I said New Year's Day, and I've always been under the assumption of that because my mother kind of said that when back the day it was sometime early January of '74. I was 5 years old. But yeah, he passed
he was only 27.
He passed away from cancer at 27 years old.
Wow. I mean, and like, what memories do you have of your dad? Like, at that age at 5, do you have much memories of him?
I actually do. I was telling my wife this a couple times when we bring this up. I remember that basically I can remember when my mom was pregnant with my sister, who's I think she's 2.5 years younger than me. My dad would go over to the Highs and get her some ice cream or whatever she was craving that night. And we lived in a real bad, we were very poor. We lived in a very bad apartment complex for the time. And when he would come back, he would put his hand up in the window and scratch the screen to let my mom know he was back and he was coming up the stairs and to unlock the door and he was coming in. So I definitely remember that. And I remember me and my mom were watching Get Smart, which was on TV at the time. Nowadays, obviously it's a flashback, but back then it was really happening. And then I remember my dad taking me to, I think it was a dentist as a kid one time. And that's really what I remember about him. I don't remember much, but I do remember that. And I've sort of put things together after he died. My mom sort of told me, but I can't visually remember anything but what I just told you.
And your mom, I and like I said, I did read your book. You sent me a copy of your book, and I read it in a couple days. And man, it was definitely. I got to say, King, we'll talk about your book too during this interview. But one of the, I can't believe that it's not it's hard to get. It's really hard to find because it is a great book, man. And your mom was really. I found it awesome how your mom worked a lot of jobs, right, to take care of you guys.
When my dad died, like I said, we were very poor. We didn't have nothing, and the military didn't help my mother or anything. When he died from cancer, they were talking about Agent Orange and all that stuff at the time, and she looked into it. But all the state wanted to do was say, if you can't keep both your children, me and my sister Kelly, if you can't keep them both, we're going to take one of your kids. And since Kingsley's the oldest, we're going to take your daughter. And my mom said, like hell you will, and she went and worked 3 jobs to keep us. And basically. It was just me, her, and my sister against the world with some help from her sister, Marlene, which my aunt. And that was kind of all there was, besides her mother. We had nothing. We were very, very poor.
And she still kept you doing shit because you were playing soccer from like 5 to 15.
Yeah, once she got rolling and going and got hurt. I mean, basically, what my mother told me was that when my father died, she just lost all will to live, and if she did not have us as children, she would have been lost. Okay, so she put the rest of her life into just being a workaholic, just all about work, taking care of her kids. So any money she had, it didn't matter when she had it. It went to the kids. It went to entertain us. As we got a little bit older, she would take us to the drive-in. Sure, we'd go pack a carload, night to make it work, or we just basically whatever she had money for. And if you just read the book, the whole book opens up with my mom counting change from her
Yep.
purse, and that's what we did. That's truly what we did. We to go to the pony rides or go to McDonald's, which what isn't like today where nobody wants to be at McDonald's. When you were a kid, that was a treat. So yeah, she was everything, and she was the stronghold of our family. She was a mother and a father early on to me and my sister.
And at an early age, you were into this. So your favorite band at this age 6 was the Beatles.
It
Was
was
that the first music that caught your attention?
It was because of my aunt, Marlene. Marlene was in her terrible teens. Okay, she was a partier. She actually had a moment in time where she actually went to the West Coast and was hanging out with the Charles Manson gang. She was one of those
Wow.
like free spirits, drugs, and sex and rock and roll. I mean, she went through a lot of stuff, and my grandmother said she was hell on earth, and she told me never be that way to my mother, et cetera, which we'll get to that hell on earth. but basically, yes, she would turn me on to like records. I'd go to her house, and by then it was 74 into 75. I'm like 5, 6 years old then, and I'm just being babysat. And when I'm in her going through her stuff, I'm seeing Simon and Garfunkel, the Beatles, Grateful Dead. I'm just pulling the records out. So we got the Beatles going, and it was Ticket to Ride or Help or I Want to Hold Your Hand, something. And I do remember as a kid, like she used to say, you get up on the table and shake your hiney and be like, singing the songs while the record was playing. But I remember remembering the songs once the record wasn't playing anymore. So I had those choruses stuck in my head, from about 6 years old. So yeah, the Beatles were my first love. Absolutely. Still, to me, probably the greatest band ever formed in the history of music. I just think they did so much in such a short time, and it was phenomenal. It'll always mean a lot to me.
Yeah, and even my kids even now are getting into the Beatles. They're like 5 and 3, and it's just something about that band just resonates for the mind. It's a catchy, I mean,
they just went a lot of ways, a lot quick. I mean, you get the the psychedelic era, their drug phase, their down and out phase, their pop phase, their basically teen idols phase. They did so much, and you look back, and it wasn't even a decade. It wasn't even 10 years. All that stuff happened.
They're one of those bands that have stayed the test of time more than anybody.
Just about anybody.
Like,
you're right.
If you think about
as we get older, there's still Beatle break on our radio station at certain channels and all this. It'll always be there, just like your Led Zeppelin breaks and all that. But to me nowadays, as it gets older and gets further away from when it was actually happening, I get people like, oh, the Beatles, they were so fucking overrated and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, hey, the world likes to fucking bitch and complain. I'm not even going to listen to what they got to say. I know I like to consider myself, a hardened musician to a degree. I see what they went through. And watching that Get Back thing that came out about 2 years ago.
I was about to say.
It was 6 hours of them sitting around just writing tunes. I'm like, I could have watched it for 60. Some people are like, oh my God, what a nightmare to sit through that shit. I'm like, shit, I was looking for 50 more hours of the shit.
And that shows you how much of the Paul was such a man in that band. Like Paul had that machine running.
27 takes and happy to do it. You got bands now that don't even want to write the tunes. They just want to look cool, get a cool logo, make a cool promo pic, do a video, and then throw a bunch of shit out and call it fucking tunes. And that sucks.
Well, they were the guys too that had the money to sit there in a studio and for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and just write and play and write and play. And look what they came up with.
Exactly.
Most bands can't do that.
Exactly. And, just not to go on a Beatle tangent, but when Lennon and McCartney would just sit there and it's like they knew what the other one was about to do. And as soon as they did something, the other guy would sing whatever the hell. They could just throw anything out there, some old Johnny B. Good or something, and they would just be on the same page. So they were locked in. And that means
Chemistry
a lot to me. Being in a band, that just the brotherhood of that time, I know they ventured apart and drugs took them apart and all that stuff. But that brotherhood of them writing is so incredible.
Definitely. And, you know, so 76, which is, we were talking about this movie earlier, actually. Your mom took you to see Burn Offerings at the Arlington Theater. Was that your first horror movie that you had seen?
I had, it's the first one I really remember as a full movie. There's pieces of stuff in my head from other things, but the first movie, and it was so cool because my mom and me went, and it was just me and her. And if anybody knows the movie, basically there's some kind of old lady in the attic, and you don't never see her, and you're like, what's going to happen? And it's kind of obvious what's coming, but when it's coming, and I just remember telling my mom, we got to go. I can't make it. I'm not going to make it. Holding my eyes and stuff. I'm being a little kid. You know, I would think I was 8. And she was like, you go on out to the lobby. When it's over, I'll be out there. And I'll let the lady, Mrs. Allardyce, sit with you. But yeah, it was the first one. And my mom loved horror movies. And I think she got a nice little nudge out of, like, you know, spooking me out, which sits with me cool, you know, with the deceased stuff. Somewhere in there, there's probably mom's, you know, that kind of vision from her. But I would say it was the first full horror movie that I actually remember seeing.
And so in that, you know, you saw that, like you said, you went out to the lobby, you wanted to leave and stuff, but your mom, in that, you know, now you look at that movie and, you know, for me, when I was a kid, when I saw, like, we were talking to Ed, when he falls out of the window and his face goes to the windshield, when you're a kid, that's like, you know, I was like, holy
Brutal.
shit. You know, I think that might've been the first time I had seen something like that as a kid. And it was pretty brutal, man.
It was an intense movie. Yeah. Oliver Reed, he was nuts in that. But for me, it was that goddamn chauffeur driver, man. That damn Anthony James, man. Every time he came on the screen and smiled at you, it was freaky. Then near the end, when Betty Davis, you know, when she gets taken out, and you hear it come up the stairs, and there he is in the door. That's what got me.
Yeah,
it was definitely. Just kept building and building, and I'm like, shit. And now you watch it, and I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But it's quite obvious what's going to happen when the end comes. But it doesn't matter. It's getting there and enjoying getting there that makes it.
Karen Black, you know, she was awesome in it. It was just, when you're a kid, that's a, you know, one of those things. And I want to talk about.
While you're there, I just want to tell you one thing. So I ended up meeting Karen Black at one of the. Well, I met her a few times at those horror conventions, Chiller, and all that kind of stuff. We became really good friends, and I have pictures. I gave her. Later on, we did a deceased shirt. We did the song "The Doll with the Hideous Spirit," which was the Trilogy of Terror, which is another one of her classics. Mm-hmm. And I gave her a shirt, and we hung out, and we were like dancing at the Chiller. She became really. Every time I'd see her, she'd spend time with me, and I just always thought, that's so fucking weird. When I was a kid, I was scared to death of that lady. And then here we are, like, at these Chillers. She's like, King, how are you? Hug me and all this. So she was a fucking cool lady, man.
No, definitely. And, you know, talking about your childhood, you know, so I want to talk about, you know, that time period you're watching, like, what are you watching for cartoon wise? Was it like Super Friends and all that stuff?
Oh, Super Friends, Speed Racer, Marine Boy, anything Sid and Marty Krofft, especially Electro Woman or Dr. Shrinker or Puffin stuff. All that stuff, the Wacky Racers, some of the lesser known stuff, Big John, Little John, which was a live action show about a guy that could become an adult or a kid. Oh, and another one I really liked was called Monster Squad, which had Fred Grandy, who went on to be Gopher on the Love Boat. I loved that. I watched all that stuff. I mean, I was locked in when I would watch that early, go do my soccer on Saturdays, come back and go into like the Abbott and Costello film festival at noon, and then I'd turn it over about 1:30 to American Bandstand and go into like whatever the hell was happening then.
And you were in that area, so I lived over in that area for a while. My dad used to work for the Redskins, actually, and you know, DC. Remember DC 101?
Absolutely.
You know, what was it? Metal Shop. You had Midnight Metal.
Monday Metal was mine. That was DC 101. Every Monday night at midnight, they play a heavy metal record all the way through. It was Adam Smasher was on there. I think you would probably remember them.
Yep. Do you remember? Do you remember Count Gore Duvall?
Absolutely. Creature Feature. Yeah. That's what I was saying about some of my early stuff. I remember seeing pieces of Night of the Living Dead, pieces of Circus of Horror, pieces of Carnival of Souls as a kid. Like it would come on 11:30 and I could stay up and my mama didn't care, but I would just usually fall out about 12:20. I mean, like, and I wouldn't make it. I can always remember like getting underneath the dining room or the living room table and putting my head underneath it and propping my feet up on the TV stand and looking up, and he would come on and just be a fool. I love.
We had him. We had him on here. We had him on here. He came on here because he was doing. We had him on here for like 2 hours. He was awesome. He came on and hung out.
He was a lot of things. He was also Captain 20.
Yep, Captain 20. Bozo the Clown.
Yeah.
He was Bozo at one time. Yeah,
It
we
was
had him on
Bozo.
here. It
I
was
remember
awesome.
all that stuff, Romper Room, all that. I mean, now you're in my heart. You know, in my heart sleeves now, brother.
Well, you're actually someone. There's a show that you like, which is one of my favorite shows ever. It got me into a lot of things actually that I grew up into, and even when I think of the actor now who passed away from it, it still bums me out. I was a big John Ritter fan, and I know you were a big Three's Company guy. One of my favorite shows
my
ever.
favorite sitcom ever.
Yeah, I mean, that was. So I have to ask you, who was your favorite? So Chrissy, Janet, Cindy, Terry, Lana. Who was your favorite out of the females?
I love Joyce DeWitt. She changed that hairdo like the day is long, but boy, she was the best. And I would always go to I'd go to those chillers. I'd meet them all. It would always be Priscilla Barnes would always be there. Jenny Lee Harrison sometimes. I met Larry. Larry was there one time with Pat Harrington from One Day at a Time, Schneider. But one time I was there and someone said, "Hey man, that one you like, the brunettes here." I'm like, "Nah, Priscilla Barnes." She goes, "No, she just showed up." And I said, "What? She's not supposed to be here." I turned around and there she was. And I walked up and I said, "You are my favorite. I love you. You know, fuck the blondes. You're the winner." And she was so mellow and relaxed. And I looked at her and she was like, "Oh, I have to." I said, "I'll pay you anything. I have to get a picture. I have to get something signed. My favorite TV show. I love you. I love you. Love you." So she went around and had someone go around to the people selling pictures, and they came back with this really, for her, very sexy thing with almost a boob hanging out of her shirt, and she signed it to me, and then she goes, "I kind of feel bad." She goes, "I want to give you something else too, you know." And I said, "Okay." And so they got another less revealing one. So she actually signed two pictures. She gave them to me. She didn't want any. She refused
awesome.
money. She was like, "I can't believe anybody cares." And I told her, "You should set up at one of these things and do your thing." Because Priscilla Barnes, she's always there. She was kind of like, I think at the time, marketing the Devil's Rejects movie.
Yeah, she was in that.
The House of Thousand Corpses. That whole thing was going on with Sid Haig and all them. And she just walked up, but she didn't really understand how it all worked. But yeah, she was my favorite. I liked her probably best, and probably Terry second was my for the blondes.
Well, the girl, when you're a kid, those girls, I remember there was a girl on there. Her name was Tori. I can't remember her last name. Lisendale, maybe. And she was, do you remember the episode? She was like when he went to the gym and the gym instructor and her brother, the brother was like the gym instructor.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and he got beat up by exercising, and he wouldn't touch him. Absolutely.
That's a great show. I actually. Yeah, she was great, because you had like Twinkie back then. You had all those girls on there. But actually, when you were going to come on, I was going to play the Three's Company theme, but I was afraid they were going to nail us for copyright. I was like, because I'm a big Three's Company was one of my favorite shows growing up.
They should have when it ended. They should have had Jack and Janet get married.
Valerie ruined the whole thing.
Three's a Crowd is as bad as Three's Company is good, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was the end. You kind of knew, and I mean, John Ritter was a great actor. I remember he was on the Waltons back in the day.
He was on a lot of stuff. I actually have a really good friend who waitered for him and Henry Winkler all the time in New York. And, he would say they were such nice guys. But he said he saw why John Ritter had a lot of problems with his health. He said that guy liked his butter.
Oh, yeah, see.
But, I love John Ritter, too. I mean, without sounding morbid saying it, he's funnier dead than most people that are now that are alive.
And I think you look at people like Kramer from Seinfeld and stuff, and you got to thank a lot of John Ritter because he was the first. He was the first physical guy I remember tripping over couches, and
he was great at it, man. It's just, we don't get TV like that anymore, brother.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so talk about your first show you ever attended. So I know. So the first time you ever saw Kiss was actually before you saw them live, because I know you saw them on the Dynasty tour with your mom, but you first saw them in a magazine, 16 magazine.
Yeah, my mother and her mother would get together and go to the Grand Union. You probably remember that since you're there. Okay, Grand Union. They'd go there on Sundays and they'd want to shoot the shit for hours. I'm a little kid, like, let's get the fuck out of here. I may have even been saying that at the age. It was 76, 77, somewhere in there. But my grandmother would always buy me a roast beef sandwich and a grape soda. The house brand in the can, 25 cents. And I'd go over to the magazines and I'd look at football magazines. And then I just started looking at music stuff. And there was this guy spitting blood on the cover. I'm like, what the hell is this? This looks so cool. And of course, it was Gene Simmons. And as soon as that happened, I was like, I need to know what this is about. And it stayed in my mind for a while, but nothing came of it immediately in the near future after that.
Then a guy named Jeff Pierce, right? He first introduced you to the Destroyer album.
Yep. I mean, yeah. So all through basically all through the 70s, my mom got down to one job, but basically after school she couldn't pick me up. She was at work, so I'd stay at these after school recs and stuff. They have these like guys that were like 20, 21 that were they were potheads and stuff. Just that was their job, was to keep an eye on you. And one day he brought up Kiss, and he said, "Man, you like Kiss?" And I said, "Is that the one with the guy with the blood?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Man, I've never heard it. I really want to hear it." And he goes, "All right, hold on." And I remember him like pondering to himself, should I do this or not? Okay. He wrote this long ass letter, and it basically said, "Hey, Victor, this is a guy that I'm over here at the school taking care of. He's going to come over. I need to borrow your Kiss Destroyer record. I want to play it for him. I want to jam with him." Something like that. And then he told me, go across the street, walk up the hill, turn around the corner, and on that corner there's going to be a house. Knock at the door. The guy's name's Victor. So I literally left this. This is third grade. I left school property, went over there, and this dude answered the door, and it looked like Leonard Skinner. It was just like, yeah. And I gave him and he gave me the record. So I'm walking back to the school, and I'm looking at this band, and I'm thinking, these guys are floating in hell. This is fucking spooky. So it actually kind of gave me a creepy vibe. Looking at it now, I don't get that, but then I did. I went back across, and he had got a turntable, the old school elementary ones with the speaker built in, and he put the record on, and it started talking, and I was like, "Where's the music? What's going on?" And he said, "This song's about this guy. He goes to see Kiss in concert, and he dies." And I'm like, "What?" So again, morbidness is creeping in. Detroit Rock City eventually blast in, and there I go, and my head is, it's doing what it's been doing ever since. It just made me go nuts. And he was like, "Look at you, you're born to be a rock and roller, blah, blah, blah." And I fell in love, and then I had to have it all, went crying to my mom, et cetera, et cetera. Got up to the Montgomery Ward's department store one day, wanted to Kiss Alive too, because Gene had the blood all over him. I'm like, if he's got the blood, this has got to be the best one. But she's like, "That's too much for Mama's pocketbook." So we ended up with Rock and Roll Over on cassette, because she also said there was no needle on the house turntable. So I bought Rock and Roll Over on cassette. But it was so funny, because I walked to the end of the street, and I saw a guy mowing his grass with a Kiss shirt on. And I walked over to him, and this guy was like 18, and I was in third grade. And I'm like, "Hey man, you like Kiss? I love Kiss." And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." And the guy's like, "All right." And he's trying to mow his grass. And I'm like, "You got any Kiss stuff, man?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got Kiss stuff." I said, "Man, can I come in your house and listen to it?" And he was like being nice to a kid. So I went in his house, and he literally went in the house, and he put some Kiss on, and he had this Sertron tape, and it said Kiss Alive 2 written on it. And I saw it, and I said, "Oh, this is cool. Can we hear this? This is the one I want to hear." And he goes, "It's broken." And I'm like, "What do you mean broken? The case is fine." He's like, "No, the tape it's broken." I said, "Well, can I have it?" And he said, "You can have it." So I took it home, and I put it on my dresser, like hanging, sideways on the wall, and just cherished it. Never played it, didn't work, and cherished it. I fucking, to this day, I find it so funny, because I remember being a little kid going, "Yeah, Kiss Alive 2, yeah." And I'm just looking at a fucking copy that he recorded the record off of with his little handwriting, Kiss Alive 2. But it meant the world to a little kid, man.
And your mom. So your mom took you what, 70? Was it 79?
79. I was
79.
Yep. It was my birthday weekend. It was actually the day after my birthday's the 6th. We went on the 7th. The one that goes around, it's in all the Kiss box sets and everything, is actually the 8th, because the show on the 7th was supposedly so loud that the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland was the first arena to have video, up on the telescreen. They were the very first arena in the United States, and they would always record those. And the first show was so loud that they said the video was just static the whole way through. So they did record the second night. So if you go look on YouTube and you see Largo 79, that was night 2. But yeah, she took me. She got me some good seats. We walked in there. I looked at all the people. One of my best friends, Dan, as a kid, was one of my best friends. He went. My sister went. It was like $12, $11. Bought me a $9 T-shirt. The whole shebang. A band called New England opened, which, as I got older, I wished it was Judas Priest, who got on a few days later. But we got New England, which was produced by Paul Stanley. I had no idea what was going on when Kiss came out with King of the Nighttime World. I had no idea what they were playing. It was so intense to me. And I just had the time of my life. And at the end, they dropped the Kiss Army sponge, the shaped like the Army, Kiss Army, out of the disco ball at the end of the show. And I still got it over here. All these years later, it's sitting over here on this little end table. So I still have it. I got it. They gave them out to everybody. It just fell from the disco ball. So
That's
amazing
awesome.
time.
And what's your favorite Kiss album makeup wise?
I always say Rock and Roll Over, but I have a special place in my heart, and it's weird because half the record I don't like, but I have a special place in my heart for the Paul Stanley songs on Kiss Unmasked. I'm a big fan of stuff like Easy as It Seems and Tomorrow and What Makes the World Go Around, but yet I can't stand the Ace Frehley songs. Not a Torpedo Girl or Two Sides of the Coin kind of guy on that one. But Gene, Naked City is good, and She's So European. I don't mind Shandy. Is That You is great. All That I Want at the end doesn't do a lot for me, but for some reason it's very poppy and it's just what it is. But for some reason, maybe it's just the era. But that's really been my go-to record for many years. But I guess you would say, since Peter didn't play on it, the one with Peter I would say is Rock and Roll Over for studio. And of course,
Who had the best solo album, you think?
Yeah, the two live albums.
What was the best solo album you think of all four?
Paul Stanley's.
Yeah.
I'm not. Everybody says Ace Frehley. I still stand by it. My running joke for centuries is some of it's better than I expected, but some of it's seventh-rate Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
But it does go. It's Paul, Ace. I don't know. I might even go Peter before Gene. Gene's just so fucked up. But I'll go Gene, Peter. But Paul Stanley is my Kiss guy, man. If you can't tell from looking behind me.
Dude, Paul Stanley is my Kiss guy as well. Dude, he hit me with a pick. Like, he got me
right on.
My I have the pick, and
that's awesome.
That's my favorite dude.
Yeah, just something about him. I know people like Paul or Gene Camp or Ace and Peter. I'm Paul and Gene all the way.
In mid-70s, right? That's pretty much starts your relationship with drums because you had a buddy, Andy, right, whose brother played in All Points Bulletin.
That's right, APB. We would go. When I was a kid, we had in elementary school. I had a best friend named Bill Ford. He became my buddy because he had the Kiss shirts too. He actually had all the stuff that nobody had. His dad worked for Radio Shack Tandy Company, and he was a rich son of a gun. And we'd go to his house, and he'd have a pool table. He'd have a VCR. He was the one that taped Kiss Meets the Phantom when it played on NBC in '78. He had all the stuff. He had the Myler posters. He had all the Chopper Bike posters. He had Kiss the Originals. He just had it all. And we became best friends. But I also had a friend that was a year younger named Andy McGazel. He was, by this time it was sixth grade, and he was in fifth. And he was really into like Aerosmith and stuff like that. And we had a talent show, and we did Kiss, and he did Aerosmith. He had the scarves up, and I think he did Dream On and Walk This Way, whatever, the big hits. And we became really good friends. So I started going up to his house sometimes after school when my mom would trust me to like go to a friend's house, and then when I get home from work, be home, we'll have dinner. It was no longer like you're in third grade and you can't be out on the streets by yourself. So I'd go up there, and we'd go in the basement, and we'd start raiding his brother's record collection. Jethro Tull, Rush, Genesis, Weather Report were some of the bands. But he was in like a jazz fusion band called All Points Bulletin, and they always jammed in his basement. And he had this huge, massive, a la Neil Peart drum set at the time, and we'd watch him play. And then when he wasn't home, he'd be like, "You want to go down and jam?" His name was John, but we called him Jackie's Kit. And I'd go down there and fuck with it. I couldn't play for shit, but I watched him, and I sort of took a liking to it for later.
And at that time, is that when you start hanging out with Marcel?
Marcel was a little later. Marcel was like about probably 2 years later, maybe 1 year later.
And his brother, right, worked at a hotel or ran a hotel, and he actually hooked you up with the Plasmatics record.
Yeah, he worked at a hotel, and all the bands that played the Bayou usually stayed there afterwards. So he got a lot of free records from bands. I remember he gave me a Plasmatics record. He gave me a Nina Hagen record. He gave me the Motels. He gave me one of their records. They would just stay there and be like, "Hey, yeah, we're here. Here's us. This is what we are." And back then, vinyl was the CD of now. And he didn't never really keep any of the stuff, and he'd give them to me. So I got turned on to a lot of cool shit. I didn't have any money for those records back then, so they fell into my lap, so to speak.
About 12 years old, you get a bass, and you mentioned Bill Ford, and that's when you guys basically formed. Was it Slack Tide?
Slack Tide. I don't know where that name came from. His dad thought it up, Mr. Radio Shack himself. Bill Ford moved away. He moved to Savannah, Georgia, after sixth grade, and it broke my heart because we always talked about having a band. We had already done our fake Kiss concerts with the pool sticks behind the house, and one night, as I said in the book, we were going to do a big show, and we had taped on a cassette on his little tape recorder, Kiss Tonight, and we're driving up, pulling the sled up and down the hill like we're playing tonight. And his dad's like, "What are y'all doing?" And we're like, "We're going to Carvel Ice Cream to get $5 worth of dry ice because we're going to have smoke at the show." And he's like, what show? I was like, we're going to play in the backyard tonight in Bill's house. He's like, there's 8 fucking inches of snow on the ground. It's a Thursday night. It's a school night. You're not doing that. But we wrote Kiss on the sled like it was our tour sled. And we went and got the shit. And anyway, so when he moved away, that dream kind of fell apart. And then one day he called me and he said, man, I want to start a band, man. I like the name Slack Tide. My dad gave it to me and he sort of told me what it meant. And I was like, whatever. And he goes, can you and Andy play at all? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, why don't you buy a bass? I think Andy has a guitar and try to learn these songs. And he gave me a list of songs he wanted to do, which was You May Be Right, Billy Joel, Rock and Roll Fantasy, Bad Company, Love Gun, Kiss, My Sharona from the Knack, and Aerosmith's take on Train Kept a Rollin'. That was the 5 tunes. And we basically learned them to as much as a 12-year-old kid would learn them. I mean, today's 12-year-old can play, fucking Billy Sheehan. But, I mean, it was what it was. We got on a bus. We went all the way down to Savannah, Georgia, just me and him. At 12 years old, he was 11. 12 years old and 11. His dad set up a show at a community center. We jammed for 2 days. We got the set list down, and we went and played. We did the show Slack Tide. I played bass. I sang You May Be Right. I sang Rock and Roll Fantasy and Love Gun. He sang My Sharona. I think Andy sang The Train Kept a Rollin'. And then some little girl went up there, and they pulled a piano over, and she did Keep On Loving You from REO Speedwagon. And all of a sudden, we were unimportant, and she stole the show from us. Oh, what a great little girl. We wanted to light her on fire after that.
So the first song you ever officially played live was Billy Joel. You made it right.
Yep. Friday night, I crashed your party. Saturday, I said, I'm sorry. Sunday came, you trashed me out again. I can never forget those, because back then you're like, I have to know this. So I have to know this. So I can't forget it. But yeah, that was the only show we ever did was Slack Tide. And then Bill moved again to California, and me and Andy and my buddy Dan were friends until now. We're going into middle school, 7th and 8th grade now. This is when I met Marcel.
Okay. And is that also, so 7th and 8th grade, it was 82, I believe. You formed the band Messenger, right? With Jamie Brown?
Yeah, he was my 7th and 8th grade, one of my best friends. He was a hell of a guitar player. Now he's considered one of the best banjo players in the world. But he was like talking, I didn't even know what it meant back then. He was into guitar harmonies. He was like playing like stuff off like High and Dry and stuff. And he was just telling me how Sabbath was a 1 guitar band and he was into 2 guitars. I didn't know what that meant. He was like, I'm really like the Thin Lizzy and stuff. So he was ahead of the game. And Marcel I met, and he was already a drummer. And I was like, well, I guess I could try to still keep playing bass. But they were like, why don't you just, Jamie literally saw me and said, you're not very good at bass. Let me play guitar. Marcel's not bad on drums. You just sing. So we became Messenger. We had a couple names, Messenger, Heathen, generic names that obviously were taken. But we just went with it, and we ended up cutting a demo called "Fuck You."
And that was what? And that was after you guys decided to be over, right? You still cut the demo after you guys decided to be done. We cut the demo after we were done because Jamie actually said one day, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while," because I got kicked out of school in 9th grade. I basically got kicked out of school on a whim, and he went on doing his thing, and we were still friends, but we never saw each other because I didn't go to school anymore. But one day he was like, I'm going to go to Marcel's house. Why don't you come over? And this was actually, I think this was 83 when we cut that demo. And we went over there and just went over the songs in an hour. And I didn't even have a microphone. So I yelled into a bucket that day for vocals. Well, we're going to, I think you guys had 3 originals, and we're actually going to play one of the songs now from Messenger from one of the, from the demo. We're going to play Turn It Loud. And that was 83, like you said, off the Fuck Off demo.
Written in 82, recorded in 83.
Okay, we're going to play that, and we'll be right back with King Fowley after this song from Messenger from 1983, Turn It Loud.
Hey, open the door.
What? What do you want?
Turn it down, the babies are trying to sleep.
Why?
Because, what do you mean? Just turn it down.
Turn it down! Turn it down!
Motherfuckers on this one and I slap your ass! Looking for a way out of this shit, motherfucking
That was Messenger with Turn It Loud from the Fuck Off demo from 83. Messenger breaks up. You guys record the demo, like you said. And also, that's a big time for you because you see Sabbath on the Mob Rules tour in 81, 82.
It was December 3rd, 1981, the most important day in my life for heavy metal. First, I'd gone and seen Kiss. We saw Aerosmith a year later with my mom. He took me to both shows. This was
That's
the first
awesome.
time I'd ever been without my mother at a show. It was me and Marcel. I wasn't a weed head yet, but he started smoking weed. Somebody passed him a joint. I can remember plain as day. It was Alvin Lee opened the show from 10 years after. Mick Taylor was a guest from the Rolling Stones. And then Sabbath came out. And right before Sabbath came out, I remember Michael Schenker Group playing on the PA was Are You Ready to Rock? And lights went down, Sabbath came out, and it was on. I just had gotten into Sabbath. My background with Sabbath was this. My buddy Dan was like my buddy Andy and like my aunt. Whenever we got around his older brothers, we'd go fishing through their tapes, looking for music, because his sister had turned, I was like, she's got Van Halen, she's got Ted Nugent. We would find Foghat, Cheap Trick. I was like, man, this is fucking great. So we went to his brother, but his brother was a hippie. And his brother had like Crosby, Stills, and Nash and America and Seals and Croft and shit like that. And he had Black Sabbath. And I said, let me put this on, see if this is any good. Put it on. I said, this sucks. It's hippie shit. It was Planet Caravan. So I didn't even know what was going down in the city then, right? So anyway, around the same time, we were going to go see AC/DC for those about to rock. Marcel's dad was going to get us tickets. He's like, I'm going right now. I'm going to get them. His dad was famous for being full of shit. He comes back. I got you Black Sabbath tickets. And I'm like looking at Marcel, trying not to say anything to his dad because I'm a kid. Black Sabbath sucks. I don't want to see no fucking Black Sabbath. That tape that Dan had, you know what I'm talking about? That shit sounds like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Fuck that. For those about to rock, he's like, they only had nosebleeds, and behind the stage, it was, blocked views. So I got you Sabbath. AC/DC was $18, I think, and Sabbath was $11. Probably why he got them. Anyway, we got Black Sabbath. So it was like pretty much fall, and we had about 2 months till the concert was going to be. Kept hearing this song on the fucking radio, and I loved it. I'm like, who the fuck is this? This is the kind of shit I'm into now, this more aggressive kind of shit. Well, one day the guy goes, that was Black Sabbath. And I said, what? It was Heaven and Hell. The song Heaven and Hell. I'm like, what the fuck? This is what we're going to see? So went out and bought the Mob Rules because I was like, I need the latest one. And I thought I was getting the song on there, but the Mob Rules had come out. So I got Mob Rules, loved the cover, fell in love with the record, and then showed up at the show. And as soon as they came on stage, I fell in love with them. They had the backdrop, which that's my favorite album cover of all time by anybody. And that artwork was up there, and I just freaked out. But as I said in my book, when they did the breakdown of Heaven and Hell, and it was, go away, I'm going to burn in hell with all of you. And the big flames came up and the cross was up there. It hit me, man. It touched me. And I literally said out loud to myself, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be in a heavy metal band just like this. I don't give a fuck. And I've never looked back since that day. I loved music tons before that, but that day it became all about, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. December 3rd, 1981.
What was so cool about Dio, he was still doing that. Like, he was still doing that. Like you said, that whole burn in hell thing for like many years. He was always, it was part of the still show awesome. Never got old, And you mentioned 83. So 83, you mentioned getting kicked out of school, right? So what, your teacher got angry and pulled your hair? Because you were reading a Fangoria magazine?
It was ninth grade. I had just started high school. Most of my friends from elementary went to the other school. I was on this side of the divider. I was sitting there, and I got great grades in school. I was like straight A's, and it was easy to me. And I'm still, even at 56, I'm still a pretty hyper guy, but I was super duper hyper back then. And I remember I finished it. It was English class. I finished whatever the assignment was, and I'm sitting there not bothering nobody, and I have a Fangoria magazine, and it's the one with the scanner's head blown up on the cover. And she walks over, and I could see she was like tapping her legs, and she was getting upset, and I knew she was going to break bad on me at any time. So she goes, why are you always done? And this was 2 months into school, September, October, November. So it was November of then. And why are you always done before everybody else? Why? What does this? Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing my shit. I'm not bothering nobody. And she literally pulled me by my not very long hair, but my scraggly hair. And those desks back then, the chairs connected to the desk. She basically tosses me to the floor. And I get up and I go to throw the desk, and I don't throw it at her, but I throw it near her. And I'm like, you don't put your fucking hands on me. And I turned around and left. I walked off the school property, and I was walking home, which was about 4 miles. And truant officers came and took me back to school, took me into the principal's office, and he was like, yeah, you don't throw things at the teacher. I said, throw things at the teacher? She fucking picked me up by my fucking desk and my hair and fucking knocked me over. He goes, what? He didn't know this. And so the next day, my mother came up to the school. I was thrown out of the school, and the teacher was given, this is your last, basically your last run with us. You're done. And I never went back to school then. And on that ride home, my mom said, well, we're going to have to find you something to go to school. You got to learn school. And I said, Mom, I'm done with school. I've been in school since I was 16 months old. I was in Sugar Plum preschool nursery when I was a kid. So I was always somewhere because my mom was working. So I had to be somewhere. So I learned a lot before the age of 5 when most people start going to school, 4, 3, whatever it is nowadays. And so my mom didn't want to do that. And I wish to this day, years later, I wish I would have stayed in school and gone on and got to do everything you do in high school, but I didn't. And so we went before a judge, and he said I had to be, I think it was 15 and a half to drop out legally. So he made me go to a night school until that time. And so I went to a night school until it was time. And then I went, and basically my mom was able to sign that I'd leave in school. And after that, I never looked back. And that's when it all turns into where we'll probably go next with the drugs and the sluts and rock and roll.
Were you working at Waxy Maxie's at that time period?
I got my first
job.
I was working at Waxy Maxie's at Skyline Mall, which obviously you probably remember. And I loved it. I was only there for 3 weeks. I started getting into weed and all that stuff. So I was stealing money out of the register. Somebody came up with a killer ounce and they needed the money. So I took it. A guy had bought a Frank Sinatra box set of vinyl. It was like $100. I mean, even for then, it was $100 some dollars. It was some super duper, golden trooper kind of thing. And when the lady Robin, she was this lesbian manager, came back at lunch. She said, "Where's the receipt tape for that? I don't see it in there. I see it's gone. Did you ring that up?" And I said, "No." And then she went to the other guy in there, and he's like, "No, he rang it up. I haven't even been behind a register." She goes, "When you leave for the day, stay gone and don't expect a check at the end of the week." And I was fired after like 24 days. I'd been in there taking heavy metal records from day one. I was a fucking heavy metal maniac, dude. What can I say? I was the guy that Slater was writing about.
Exactly. And you had met, so that's in around that time period. So you were at your ex-girlfriend's house, I believe it was, and you met Doug.
Yeah, well, I was actually at my house, and I always hung out with older people just because I wasn't in school and I'd meet these people. But that guy Andy, I go to his house and he'd always like, let's walk up to Highs and get a Coke or whatever the fuck we would do. And we'd walk past these guys that were playing football. And I'm a big guy, and even then it was bigger than most. They were like, hey, you want to play football? So I went and I started hanging with these guys who were like 17, 18, like in 11th, 12th grade. And so they went to school and they had a car. And basically one night we went out with the guy Frankie's sister and her girlfriends, and I met this girl, and I had just seen Def Leppard, Crocus, and Gary Moore, and she was wearing a Pyromania baseball jersey. She got really drunk, passed out, threw up. I took care of her, made sure she was all right. She gave me her phone number when she came to. She thanked me. I called her. We got together. She started going to school. She was at school where they were going to school, my older friends. So when they would skip school, they'd give her a ride. But she had this one guy named Doug that went to school with her, and he came over. And I remember I was blasting Man of War. I was playing Man of War battle hymns, and he was like, "This is cool." And he had a Bad Company shirt on and a deer hoof in his back pocket. He was a fucking hunter kind of guy. He grew up like that. But we became the best of friends, man. And then we were inseparable. And he picked up guitar. I went back to try to get the bass again, and I just couldn't do it. And that's kind of like that's where it all kind of started with our heavy metal band.
And you met Mark Adams at the Wax Museum venue in D.C. Was it 83? Because you were at, what was it, Twisted Sister, Queensryche. That should have been You Can't Stop Rock and Roll Tour, maybe?
Yeah, it was. It was them two together. It was Queensryche's 19th show. They didn't even have The Warning wasn't out. It was still called Roads to Madness. Never forget it. Jeff Tate had the long hair still. But yeah, he was tearing down a Queensryche poster on the ceiling outside of the bathroom. We started talking. And I don't know, something came up like, yeah, what are you into? I'm into fucking Venom. I'm into fucking Slayer and all this. He's like, really? I don't know anybody that's into the heaviest of heavy. Most people were like Wasp or something like that. And then it went really threw him for a loop. When I was like, I'm not into Metallica. I think they suck. I think they're sissies. Shit, I think that's some tender shit. He was like, what? You don't like fucking Metallica? I was like, not really, no, man. I'm more of a Venom guy. And I'd been into a lot of punk rock, and I was, I'm into the speed stuff. I'd already heard like shit like, the fast stuff of the times and stuff. So we became really good friends too.
And then Marcel. So Marcel never was really. So he did some shows with Deceased eventually, right? But he was never really a member of Deceased.
He never played an actual show. We did this thing called Yuck, Yuck, and More Yuck. And this is where it gets funny. So Mark knew some friends. Mark was in McLean. You would know this. Most people listening won't know, but McLean was a couple towns over. He lived there. Doug was in Falls Church. It's like Seven Corners. Okay. And I was in Arlington. And we got together and we started doing what teenagers do and stuff. And we started jamming. And then we needed a place to jam. We tried my house. The cops came. We were kicked out. Doug lived in an apartment. And Mark's was a no-go from the get-go. So Mark's like, I know this guy, Matt. We could probably jam at his house. And it turned out to be Matt Sharp, who went on to be in Weezer. And we fucking went to his house. And, he played bass. We had me on drums, vocals, and two guitar players going, where can we get a bass player? But we knew this guy was a poser, and we didn't want him in the band, but we still went to his house and jammed, and he'd chip in for drug, money and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. And so we went over there and we started jamming at his house. And this is around like 80, I'd say 85, 86, getting that evil side of religion going. And Marcel, by this point, we did jam in his basement a couple times, but he got a girlfriend and he didn't really, come around much. So we would do these things in Matt's basement called Yuck, Yuck, and More Yuck. And it was basically us and another band called Wreckage. And Matt got in that band for a short while. They just took a chance, and that didn't pay off because he couldn't play bass. And we'd go there, drink liquor, smoke weed, do PCP, whatever the fuck we were doing. And we'd have concerts in the basement for girls or, Matt's fucking dad, whatever. We were playing Sodom and Bathory covers to people that could care less, But that's kind of where it stopped for Marcel. And then I started, picking up the drums more so then. And I was like, yeah, this bass thing's not going to pan out. I'm going to play fucking drums because Marcel's not going to last. So he knew I was starting to play drums. And then I asked him, can I borrow your drum set? We're going to actually play a show. And he said, yes. So we took it to this house party called Hell House in Falls Church. And for some reason, he came to the thing and was like, dude, why did you take my drum set? What the hell are you doing? And I was like, you said I could borrow it. He goes, no, fuck that. And so I fucking punched him. And he went and got the police. And the police came. And they told me, take the drum set back. So we put it in the car. We were driving back to take it back to where it was. I said, fuck this dude, man. And I rolled the window down and started throwing the fucking drums out the window. I didn't give a fuck.
And Route 66, right?
Route 66. And we had a real big fallout. And me and Marcel didn't talk for a lot of years until maybe Ed knows this. Paramore from Florida. He played for Paramore in Florida. He got together with that girl, Evil Karen, the bass player girl.
Yeah.
Remember her? And he called me one day. He's like, yep, I'm down here. I got a band again and stuff. He was with this girl, Tish, up in Virginia. It didn't work out. So he moved to Florida. And we talked and we became friends again. But I never saw him again. And then I found out he became a cop. The last I saw he was a cop. This is over 20 years ago. He became a sergeant. And I think he got in a lot of trouble because I saw his name online. Like, he got in shit with Karen. And I don't know what happened, but they said they got in a big fight over the remote control one night. And I think he pulled his gun out on her or something and pistol whipped her. So I don't know.
Wow.
But anyway, through all that, I became the drummer. And it was now me, Mark, and Doug against the world.
And you guys had some names. You guys had Mace in 84, I think it was. Mad Butcher with 2 D's in 84. It might have been 84. Yep. Evil Axe in 85.
Evil Axe. Like I tell everybody, that sounds great when you're 15, but it sounds stupid as shit saying it now. We had those names for sure.
And so at that time, so first of all, who came up with the name Deceased?
I did. I basically just kept thinking, and one day that came into my mind, and it's more common. It was common then, I guess, but it wasn't common. It was kind of an awkward name and I was like, man, it's everything we're about. We're about death and, morbid shit. Let's go with it. So we did. And I was talking to Mark Adams about maybe 3 months ago or 4 months ago when we were trying to figure out exactly when we came up with that. He says it was around June, but I found a letter I sent to a friend, tape trader guy in January that said we're changing the name to Deceased. Maybe we didn't change it immediately then, but it was thought of as 85. So I call next year will be 40 years of Deceased. But we actually had already had the band for over a year by then. We'd already had songs like Death of Christ, Terror Inside the Coffin, under these no-name stuff that we started, Evil Axe, fucking Mad Butcher, Mace, whatever it was. We had tunes before that. But
what was the first Deceased song ever written?
Well, we say it's Death of Christ, but Death of Christ was actually before it was called Deceased. The very first tune would really be After the Bloodshed, the first song on the demo. That was the first.
Okay.
It was really like that, Eaten by Disease and Gut Wrench, 1, 2, 3 punch.
And you did the logo for the band?
I did, and I'm not an artist. I'm looking at it right now. It's still the same exact logo now as it was then, pretty much. I mean, once I found it and locked it in, all the stuff, I've left it alone, kind of like how Iron Maiden does. But yeah, I just one day decided to do it. And people ask all the time what the 3 dots represent. And it means dead, but back. And when we do our last record, whenever that will be, we plan to do the last record will be called Deceased. And it'll be ... deceased instead of deceased ... And that means finished.
That means it's over.
As an exclusive for you.
There you go. And that's a great one. I was going to actually ask you about the dots. So and with your brother like you said, you tossed the drum set out the window of the car. And your brother you found a toy drum set in his closet?
Yeah, well, yeah, just a quick thing on my brother Ernie. So after my mom lost my dad, she basically didn't want to love again, didn't want to be around nothing. All her friends said, Big King, which they called my dad, would love for you to have a life. You got to love again. She met a guy named Tommy, super nice guy, and they got together and they had a son, which Ernie, he's my brother, but he's not my blood brother except through my mother. He's not a full, like, mom and dad thing, but loves him to death. And my mom and Tommy didn't stay lovers, but they stayed best friends forever. Always. My mom said, anything ever happens to me, you take care of that man. And that man passed away last year. He lived with me for the last 12 years up here. Great guy, Tommy. But Ernie's my brother, and he grew up with whatever the hell he wanted, his Matchbox cars and stuff. And he had his own room. And one day I went into the fucking closet, and it was basically a kick drum in there, a floor tom, and no, I take that back. It was a snare, a kick drum, and some kind of, I don't know what that other thing was. I guess it was a tom, but I don't know what this kit was. It was El Cheapo. It couldn't have cost more than $75. I don't even know where it came from. It didn't say Ludwig or any Premier or Pearl on it. I don't know what it was, but I had no bass drum. So I took that floor tom and turned it sideways and made that floor tom my bass drum. And I had one hi-hat cymbal, not even two, to make a hi-hat sound. And I'd hit it. That'd be my cymbal. That'd be my carry the weight of the tune stuff, and we went from there. And I thought to myself, what would Andy's brother Jackie do? What would Andy's brother Jackie do? What would Marcel do? And that's how it all started. Next thing I know, we're going to play Fight Till Death from Slayer. We're going to do Final Command from Slayer. We're going to do Bombs of Death from Hyrax. And I'm just start beating it. I never crossed my hands like most people. I'm lefty. And I just, played it like non-crossed, and it kind of came out awkward and weird, which kind of my style all through my career.
And with Deceased, you mentioned what the area you guys were at. It was what? You guys and like At War out of Southern Virginia. That was about it for like that kind of, at first, for the really, me and Joe were actually talking about this earlier about you. Like with death metal, you have a whole different definition of death metal to what, when you started playing it, what it was to what it's become, right?
Well, but I think I was growing up, Metal Church was considered death metal. Surf on Gold was considered death metal. It was just bands, heavy metal bands with morbider topics. I mean, I bet you in some roots back then, people would say Iron Maiden was death metal because it was all before it. Now, we all know it became more like we have to outdo Venom with the vocals. We have to outdo Slayer with the speed. How can we make it heavier? We'll start tuning down, etc. And then we know all the next wave of bands came, etc., etc. But for me, Blessed Death was death metal to us back then. Merciful Fate was death metal to us. That's where we were at the time. And that's where we went from. We wanted to be faster than Slayer, weirder than Voivod, eviler than Merciful Fate, and raunchier than Venom. That's kind of where we started. And if you look at one of our old flyers, we're going to out-thrash Slayer, on it.
Man, you guys really did that. Like Tony was talking about, we were just talking about your band, and I was talking about how, the drums a lot of times will have what I consider to kind of be like a punk or like speed metal beat, while the guitars will have like a black metal feel, and that creates like what I see to be a unique sound for Deceased, and
I'd agree with that. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he's saying, like it was us in At War, the only bands that were really around were like the punk bands. It was like Malefice was a band that we knew of in our 45s, United Mutation, all that local DSI kind of stuff. It was all there really was. If we were looking for metal, the only really metal bands were like Rothschild, which they became Rothschild America. They were in Maryland. They were just a metal band, or Kicks. things like that. And there was a band called Child's Play. That's kind of what it was. There was local bands. Smoke Catch was a band, but we didn't know who the hell that was. You know, they were playing Mob Rules covers and stuff, but we didn't know those guys. And when we came out, the first thing we ever did was a party. We knew this girl named Wendy in Mark's McLean crowd, and she wanted to have a birthday party and get us in there to jam. So we did it, and we played
as a 3-piece, right? April 15th,
yep.
1986.
Yeah, we played No Class from Motorhead. We played Bathory War. We played Perpetual Voice from Sodom, Bombs of Death, Hell Awaits Intro, Chemical Warfare, Fight Till Death, and then about 5 originals. I think it was Sick Thrash, Gut Wrench, After the Bloodshed, Eaten by Disease, and maybe Raw Explosives or something. All the Evil Side stuff. No bass player yet. And the only ones watching us really paying attention was Mark's brother Brad, who had made bombs and fireworks for the show and was throwing him in front of the stage while we were playing. He's like, "Here, smoke bomb, go off." And it's shit he made in his basement. And then Rob Sturzel, who eventually became our bass player, he'd be up front. And he would literally be headbanging he had his jean jacket on with his creator patches and all that stuff already. So that's all it was. And nobody knew what we were doing. And we were just kind of like making it up as we went along, like how it felt to us, because that's where we were.
And you mentioned, so first of all, with you guys, with Doug, Mark, and you guys were like best friends. And, and Rob, you met Rob, he was playing what? It was an acoustic guitar. He was playing Creator on it at a party
I knew Rob before that, but I never knew he played anything. I met Rob through Mark. He was a friend of Mark, him and his brother, Rob Sturzel and his brother, Mike. And Rob was just, he was the fastest headbanger ever. You put something on, this dude would his head was going to fall off. Nobody could out headbang this dude. And he was sitting there and I said, "What the hell are you playing, man? Are you playing Creator?" Because Endless Pain had just come out. He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Man, I know you play guitar. Can you play bass?" He said, "I guess so." I said, "You want to play bass for Deceased?" He's like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Well, come upstairs and smoke some fucking PCP with us, and you're in the fucking band." And he did it. He was a drinker. He was a German drinker. And he did it, man. And he was in the fucking band just like that. It was like middle of 1986. It was a couple months before we did the demo.
Yeah, so end of 86. So right now it's you, Mark, Doug, and Rob. And you guys do the 9 songs, the Evil Side of Religion, right?
September of 86.
And you guys, when you guys did that, so obviously you guys knew a guy who had an 8-track, right? Was it a Fostex?
Fostex. One channel didn't work. We gave the guy $20 and a case of beer. One channel didn't work. He didn't know what he was doing as much as we didn't know what we were doing. We taped all the microphones for the drums to the cymbal stands. So every time I hit the cymbal, it would make a kickback on it. So you could hear like ka-goom, ka-goom. If I ever played you just the music before I added the vocals, that demo, you would hear every time I hit it, king ka-goom, king ka-goom. It's there. But since the wall of noise came in and now you hear Evil Side of Religion, it's the whole time. It's lost in that craziness that is that. We recorded it in our buddy John Reed's attic where we were practicing at the time. He was a super big supporter early on for us. He had Marshall full stacks in there. This guy would play. His favorite bands were Ramones, Black Sabbath, and Celtic Frost. And he didn't have a band. He would just sit there and play this shit. He knew every lick. But he's like, "You can use all my shit. You can record it in this, basically the Brady Bunch attic room or something like that." And when it was done, like halfway through it, I want to tell you this too. Halfway through it, when we did Gut Wrench, the snare piece broke on the snare, the bottom thing. So I just taped aluminum foil to it, and it made enough rattle to finish the demo. We had nothing, dude. We had nothing.
And you guys did all the solo spots. So you guys did the solo spots, right? But did you?
It was all live.
All live. And when you did the vocals, you did that at home, or did you did that by yourself?
I did that at home. I basically my mom had bought me this great boom box. It was so fucking loud. It was a Panasonic Platinum that Earth, Wind, and Fire used to jump around on TV about. Panasonic Platinum. And so I had this EQ on there, and I basically borrowed Doug's delay pedal for his guitar. I popped it in, put the tape in one, and then recorded it to another one with my vocals going through as the thing. And it was a record level. You could add the vocals. And of course, I had that thing so fucking loud, not knowing that when it was done, it was like, I came back and they're like, "Dude, the vocals are too loud. They're way too loud." I was like, "Okay, I'll try again tonight." So I went home and I did a demo again with totally different vocals on headphones. And I remember my mom knocking at my door because all she could hear was, "Ah!" She didn't hear the music because it was in my headphones. And she, "Well, are you okay in there? Are you on fire?" And I cut it. And then I remember giving that first tape to this girl I was seeing at the time named Nicole. And I wish we had it because that was a total different vocal take the first night. And then they were like, yep. And they were like, you did good. You didn't step all over our solos too much and all this shit. Because I was just screaming into a fucking microphone. It was new to me. I called it a throw up box is what I called it. And that was how we put it out. No idea why we called it Evil Side of Religion. No idea. Used some tape I found at in some tape deck somewhere where we were. It was some kind of thing for car stereos to give you like a taste of what the stereo sounds like, and I just used that. We are turning the beginning of the tape. If you ever listen to it, it was just off some car thing we used because it sounded fucking weird. That's all.
And that was the first time you ever, I think that was the only time you ever recorded high, right?
I smoked a bunch of hash that night. Yep, it's the only time I ever recorded high.
And with the tapes you mentioned, so I think the first time, and I've heard you say that like this is your passion, this is part of what with the stealing. You basically stole the cassettes, right, all from the convenience stores, like People's Drug, which I don't know if people know what that is, but for us from those areas, People's Drug and stuff like that.
It's the CVS of now.
Yeah, and you were taking the tapes there to duplicate them, right, and get them out.
We had drug problems. We had no money, so we would go and we would steal whatever we could steal. We'd flip it for weed or whatever we needed, and of course, there's cassettes along the way. We must have we gave out over 2,500, and I don't think we paid for any of them. So we took over 2,500 cassettes from all the local places. We just go in, grab them, put them in our pants or under our arm, and walk out. And my mom, and I think it was Mark's mom or somebody, gave us a lot of postage stamps, and we just said, if anybody wants this, it's free. Just write us.
And the first time you ever stole was out of a car?
I was going to say, and my mom later on was like, you should have told him to give you a couple stamps.
Well, some people send you some money, though, right? Because they were you sent them for free.
$5, it's good. A lot of trades. First band I ever traded with was a band called Gore. I think they were out of Detroit. And they had the same Evil Side of Religion, the Night of the Living Dead girl, on their demo tape as we did. It was the first trade I ever did. I met tons of people through trading.
Ryford, right? That's how you and Ryford started your friendship. Was he got a copy of that demo?
Absolutely. Mark and Patigo. I mean, I could go on and on. Primeval, Revenant, Ripping Corpse, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and you guys had you did that tape, and the first Deceased show. There was you guys didn't do any vocals?
No,
no vocals for 2 years, right?
The first 5-10 shows we ever did were all parties. They were either house parties or they were farm parties, and we always played with punk rock bands. LD Kids. One band went on to be pretty big, Avail. Went on to be really big. We played with them. It was always, we'd go to these places, and these kids would have parents that were doctors or lawyers, and they'd have these huge farms out. You would remember Great Falls, Virginia, where all the rich people were. And basically, we would just set up in a field and play.
And so this is just for the people that the first interview you ever did was with Axe Murderer Zine?
Yep, Ben Hogg. He wrote me, said, I want to do an interview, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Things are moving awful fast.
And how was the chemistry of the band at that time, would you say, like when you guys put out that demo?
We were learning. Doug picked up the guitar pretty quick. Mark came in knowing more than us. When we met Mark, he came in the room, and that motherfucker could play Fight Till Death. He could do the Slayer solos. Doug had just picked up the guitar. He immediately went and took guitar lessons. I remember he learned Witching Hour from Venom quick. Feel the Fire from Overkill was one of his first ones he did. There was others. And originally I was going to play bass. That didn't pan out. Then I was just the singer. And then, as I said, I went to drums. I was behind those guys. I was okay, but I was learning. And it was taking time. And I was like, well, there's no way I can sing and play drums yet. And I don't want to suck at it. So those parties were just instrumentals for then. But we were all best friends. We were a three-headed monster, man. We were a three-headed monster. And as far as Rob at that point, like, I know you'll get to this, but like this all went weird quick because of my drug problem, which I'm sure you'll touch on. So there really wasn't a lot of time to really. Rob joined like maybe 3-4 months before we did the demo, and we were already going into like October, November, December of '86, and by early '87, I was down and out with a drug problem, and I had to take basically about 10 months off. Just to run into that, what happened was I turned into a cocaine freak. I'm already a fucking adrenaline freak. It about killed me. We were already
81 lines the first night.
81 lines, and the only reason I knew that is because I counted them to see how much I could do, and I would have done more, but we ran out. My buddy Frankie, the one that introduced me to my girlfriend, his sister's husband was from Ecuador. He was one of the biggest dealers on the East Coast out of Springfield, Virginia, and he'd just give it to Frank. And Frank at first was giving it to us, then he got an addiction, And he was like, I got to get a little bit of money because he wanted to get more and more and more and more. And it was going so fast. But the first time I ever did it was just me and Frank. And it was 81 fucking lines. And I was fucking high as hell. And I'll never forget it. I called up my buddy AC and I said, hey, man, I just thought of something. You're a bigger Black Sabbath fan than me. I want to walk to your house right now. It was 2 o'clock in the morning and give you this Black Sabbath bootleg called Black Haven. I want to give it to you. He's like, dude, I'm asleep, man. I said, I'm coming by. I'll just leave it in your door. So I go down there. I fucking leave it in his door. The next day, he's like, dude, what the hell are you on? I'm like, cocaine, man. It's my favorite drug now, man. All about it, speed. But then you add PCP, fucking LSD, marijuana, all the, all that of the day, never sleeping, running. I mean, my longest I ever went was 7 days without any sleep. I literally went 7 days to see if I could go 1 week with not 1 second of sleep. And I did it. I ended up at King's Dominion on the King Cobra, sloop-de-loop fucking thing the last day. Then I collapsed in the car going back from Richmond to Arlington, Virginia. So I was fucked up. But what went wrong was I was up at Doug's house, and my girlfriend picked me up, Carrie. We were now been girlfriend, boyfriend for a while. And she picked me up, and I said, well, can you give Mark a ride back to McLean? My girlfriend had a car before I did. And she said, sure. Now, she knew I smoked some weed and did a little bit of cocaine. She didn't know I partied, 24/7 with everybody and anybody. We start driving, and she goes, you look like shit. You feel all right? I remember I just had a pair of shorts on that day. She goes, you look ghostly white. And so I said, I feel terrible. And she goes, your heart I could see your heart beating through your shirt. I said, what? She goes, yeah, your fucking heart is beating through your shirt, like real hard. And I said, wow. So we're talking while Mark's in the back seat. We drop Mark off, McLean, about 20 minutes from where I live. We start driving back. I start freaking out. My brain starts shaking. My arms start shaking. My body's shaking. My knees are knocking. Thought I was going to OD and die right there. I'd done a bunch of coke that day, smoked it. And we got to the house, and I looked at her. I said, I did a bunch of cocaine. I think I'm overdosing. What do we do? And she goes, you want to go to the hospital? I said, I don't know. Let me sit for a minute. And I laid back, and she's like, my God, your heart is jumping. So she put her hand on my chest. And she counted it with the clock radio in the car. It was 240 beats per minute. It was beating 4 beats a second. And I looked up. I'm not a religious man in any way, but I looked up and I said, if somebody put me on this fucking earth, if you can make this go away, I will never do cocaine again. And about 20 minutes later, it started to subside, started to feel better. It went away. She spent the night. We smoked a little bit of weed together. I said, I'm never touching cocaine again, and I didn't. But 2 weeks later, I was back at Doug's house, and we were writing new songs in his apartment, just smoking weed, and I got the same feeling again. And I immediately got freaked out because I said, it's not the cocaine, it's me. Something's wrong with me. So I called my mom.
So you were having anxiety and stuff then?
Yeah, I called my mom at work, and I said, I'm going fucking home, Mom. I'm freaking out. And she came home from work, and she said, I'm going to tell you something. I hear you hitting that fucking bong all the time when you were here when I was putting my makeup on to go to work. I couldn't tell you to fucking stop. You're going to just in one ear and out the other. Are you ready to fucking stop? I said, I'm never doing drugs again. And I quit cold turkey after a hard 4 or 5 year run. I mean, probably did 20 years of drug abuse in 4 or 5 years. And it took me from around April. I basically, Voivod and the Plasmatics were coming to play, 2 different shows. I picked one. I went and saw Voivod. Everybody saw me. They knew I was sick. Voivod found out. They dedicated the show to me. I went into fucking hibernation from fucking like April to like February, I think, or something like that. Yeah, I guess it was late.
It's like
February.
9 months about?
Yeah, it was like February the next year. I started sleeping with my mom. I resorted back to infancy. My mother had to be there. I had to be in bed with my mom, who had a boyfriend at the time. And he was like totally understanding. He slept on the couch downstairs. My mom had a different part of the house. I would sleep. When my mom was home, I'd stay awake all night. And as soon as she had to go to work, I'd been up all night. I'd make myself pass out until she came home. I was so fucked up. I dropped down to 144 pounds. Back then, I'm not like I am now, but I was 188. I went down to 144. I thought I had AIDS for a while because that was really in. This is like 86. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck's wrong. I can't get better. Everybody would call me. I wouldn't see my girlfriend. I wouldn't see the band. Doug would write me letters. Mark would call. Eventually, Mark came by and saw me, and I started slowly coming back to myself somewhat. We got together. We jammed. Me and Mark went to my girlfriend's sister's husband's house, their house, and he had a drum set. And me and Mark jammed. And Mark said, "Dude, I can't believe how much better you are. You haven't." I said, "My fucking head's clear. It's fucking clear. I'm okay now." So Doug got together, and on March 3rd, it was March 3rd, 88. Or yeah, March 3rd, 80. Yeah, 88. I'm trying to make sure this. Yeah, it was 87. I was out. Yeah, yeah, that's when the accident was with Rob. Rob did not make. Rob did not make the jam. He had school. He had college, local college. He got on the phone. He said, "Man, I heard you're back. Man, I heard you sound great on drums. I can't wait to jam tomorrow." And I remember telling him the last thing I ever said to Rob was, "Tomorrow we fucking thrash, brother. Tomorrow we thrash." Hung up the phone. They said, "Rob invited us to his house tonight. Do you want to go?" I said, "Nah, man. I'm still working my way back. I'm just going to sit this one out. But soon enough, we'll all be back to normal." Mark had to do a dinner with somebody. They left him. Doug, his brother Steve, our friend Larry, and Rob, and a guy named Sean got in Doug's car and started driving out to Rob's house. They went by Mark's to see if he was home yet. He wasn't. He started driving, got a flat tire. He pulled over, and the next thing you knew, he came out of the car to see the situation. It was becoming dark. Everybody got out there looking at it. A van came over a hill and killed Rob, Larry, and Steven, Doug's brother. Sean saw it. He was the first in line. He saw the van. He jumped up on the trunk of the car like this, and it hit his legs and spun his legs around. Doug was around the glove compartment looking to get a fucking flashlight to, evaluate the situation. The van kept going. The next day, the guy turned himself in. It was an Asian man. He owned a bunch of laundry mats. People say he was drinking sake or something and stuff, but I mean, I was on the phone with a pen pal in my mom's room because she was the only one in the house that had long distance. My sister had her phone in her room. Mark called her at 1:00 in the morning, and he said, "Tell King all of our friends are dead." My sister goes, come in the room. She goes, "All your friends are dead. I don't know what's going on." I went into shock. I took the phone call from Mark. He's like, "Dude, Rob's dead. Steve's dead. Fucking Larry's dead. What happened? Fucking hit and run. Some motherfucker, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "I'm with Doug. Doug's all fucked up, man. Fucking Rob was thrown like 150 feet and all this shit." And I was like, what? I was fucked up. And I'm thinking, man, we just got through what we just went through with me. The next day, it was all over the news. The guy turned himself in. All the shit went down. But I didn't really get to know Rob. You know what you were saying about how we were close as a band? We were closer than ever after this for a while because it really was us against the world, and we had lost one of our own and our friends, including, Steve and Larry as well. And Sean was clinging to life at the time. He made it. And Doug was a fucking mess.
And the guy only got 5 years in prison?
So I hate to even say because I really don't know. Mark knows more. I don't bring it up ever because it's always, even to this day, it touches my heart, man. It makes my heart hurt. But yeah, he didn't. He definitely did not do what he should have done. I mean, he claimed he didn't see him, and maybe he didn't, but he sure as fuck didn't stop and try to help anybody. But it was vicious of a death as you can imagine. It was a van head on, shot these guys in the air down the fucking street, heads turned around, all of it, blah blah blah.
I guess Rob's parents moved to Germany, and Doug, like you said, took time off.
Yeah, Doug needed to regroup. We didn't know if Doug was going to be all right to go on. We didn't know if we were going to keep the band. This is the first time this ever happened to us. I was still not right from coming off of drugs. Now I'm fucking thinking, the world's out to get us. And then Doug fucking called. He said, "Come on, man, let's fucking jam. Let's have a fucking band." So we got a fucking party set up, which was literally 2 blocks over from where the accident was. And we went and played as the 3-piece. And people came there and they were giving their condolences because we were building up as a great local fucking crazy fucking band playing with all these punk rockers. So we had a party. It was a party band thing, but we had everybody on our side. Anybody that was trying to look for, the slayers of the area, or you will see, we've been saying Metallica, like that, this outrageous shit we were doing. And everybody showed up, including this little Asian kid, and he was jumping off everything all night, which turned out to be fucking Les Snyder. Yep. And he was going nuts and, loving it all. And that's how that got to where we got to Les.
And your mom, when you cleaned up, your mom got you a drum set, right? In 88, she got you to Ludwig?
It was crazy because this was crazy. It was this crazy Asian music place. And she's like, "I'll buy you the top of the line shit." She goes, "If we can work out a payment plan, because I'm going to be paying on this shit for years." It was a $2,500 kit. It was like double bass, 4 floor toms. I mean, it was like Neil Peart would have been jealous, And my mom gave him a down payment of like $200, and she agreed to pay like $25 a month for the end of time. And not 3 months after we got that, they went out of business. And she never had to end up paying for it. And my mom felt bad. She's like, people would. She goes, I wonder if I contributed to that by not having the money, but they were okay with that as a payment plan. And she asked them, how does this work? And they were like, nope, we're out of business. Everything's in bankruptcy. Enjoy the drum set. And so, yeah, my mom bought that for me. She was proud as shit of me, and I was so happy my mom was there for me because it took everything in her power to go to work every fucking day when I was sick and then come home and have to deal with me. Including my sister was great. Tommy was there. This guy, Danny, was my mom's boyfriend at the time. He was great. My brother, Ernie. Family was there for me.
Yeah, was it your brother staying with? He had basically watched over you when your mom was working, right, and stuff.
Yeah,
during that time period.
Yeah, he would not skip, but he would stay home from school a lot at the time.
And you mentioned the first show back. There was almost 400 people at that show with the one you met Les at, I believe.
It was. I couldn't even tell you the exact number. It was packed beyond belief. It was insane. Some guy punched a hole through the fucking window and broke his fucking arm and almost cut his arm off. And we were just.
Was that the Death Bash house?
What's that?
Was that the Death Bash house?
That was it. No, this was a one-off party. We played one time at somebody's house. I don't even remember. I couldn't tell you who owned that house. That was the one time. The Death Bash house is coming, though. We're getting to Death Bash.
So
Hell
House
was the one with Marcel. This is the one we met last, and then we'll get to the Death Bash will be coming.
And you guys did you guys put together the Birth by Radiation demo. Because I think the Birth and the Nuclear Exorcist, those are both concept demos?
Yeah. Basically, quick story. So we met Les. We didn't know Les. We had a mutual friend and a guy named Eddie Boyd. And he basically said, man, you got to get Les in the band, man. He's got long hair. He looks like Death Angel. And that motherfucker loves Voivod, man. I said, all right, man, we'll try him. So we had a tryout day. It was him, another guy named Jason who played in a local band at the time that was kind of like Metallica. And there was another guy named Spooky who was really into Voivod. He had his hair shaved like Blackie. It was Spooky Blackie. And Les went first. And he wasn't great, but he was like, it was like Love, Cryptic Slaughter, The Accused, our kind of shit. And I was like, I love him. He's cool. I like him. I didn't even want to test anybody else out. Then Spooky came in, and he was a better bass player. He was slap bassing and shit like he was in the Suicidal or Infectious Groove, and I wasn't really feeling it. And Doug was like, oh, maybe we should go with him. He's a better man. I said, nah, man, Les. And then the third guy, Jason, we knew him. He walked up in sunglasses and a Jack Daniels shirt. And he was outside with a guy named Fernando, and they were walking into my house. And I just said, tell him we've already got our guy. We didn't even let him go because he just looked like he was ready to be in Metallica. I just had this feeling about Les. And so, yeah, we started writing immediately material for the new stuff. At that time, my mom and her boyfriend, Danny, rented a house for me to actually go with me with Carrie because our house was so crazy at the time. And my mom's like, you can't jam here. I'm going to get you a place. We're going to rent a place, and you can go there, and hopefully you can jam. They have a nice basement. First time we jammed there, the cops came, kicked the door in. You can't do this. You're too fucking loud. But we started writing songs. I remember, all the stuff coming together, and we were bouncing off of like, hey, Bill, can we practice in your living room? Yep. And then after 2, you can't do it. It's too loud. My neighbors got mad. Bobby, whatever the fuck it was. We were going any and everywhere. And I said, I'm going to write a concept demo. And kind of about this thing with the radiation kind of taking over the world and fucking God being like the problem with all this and stuff. And they were like, all right. And then I didn't know what I was doing. I was just sort of creating. But yeah, we went into the studio in 1988. We went to Inner Ear. We found out about this place. It was near me in Arlington. The Bad Brains had been there. Minor Threat.
Fugazi, Minor Threat, yeah.
Yeah, and all this stuff. And we went there, and I remember meeting Don Santera, the owner. It was his house then. He didn't have the studio yet, but he had a studio in his basement. And he looked at me and he said, you're not going to record a demo with that snare head, are you? I said, that's all I got. He goes, dude, you can eat cereal off that, but you sure as hell can't use that. I said, he goes, go buy yourself a head. It's like $8. And I said, I don't have any money. And he said, here's $10. Go buy a snare head. And he wrote down what to get. And I went and bought it. And I came back and he produced that. And we were shocked at how much better it sounded than the first one. We didn't know nothing what we were doing. We did everything live, the leads on the spot. I didn't know you could, you could do a line and then stop. I mean, a vocal line and stop, and then track it line to line, whatever you want to do. I just sang it like we were in a fucking concert, and we had not played live yet on a real stage or a real club, and we were still working all that out. And then we kept playing parties, and now Les is part of it all. And that demo came out, and we were going to give it away for free, but we said we got to make some money. Let's sell it for $5. So we started selling it for $5. We must have moved 2,000 of them. And people were like, wow, the sound is much better and blah, blah, blah. Some people were like, oh, I like the first tape better. You were more raunchy and whatever. And so we started doing our thing, and then we got a chance to fucking play a club. And the first club we ever played was with In Destroy, who was out of Maryland, and they were a thrash band. They were on New Renaissance, and we played with a band called LD Kids, Learning Disabled Kids. And it was a Sunday, and we played first, and we had about 7 people there. Because
Safari Club?
What's that?
Was it the Safari Club you guys played at?
Safari Club, absolutely. And we started our thing, and I was singing now, and we got a soundboard of it, and we knew what we had to improve upon, and we literally did what any band that really wants to go anywhere did. We went into fucking practice, and we wrote better songs. We practiced every fucking day, like religiously, and we repeated the same procedure the next year with Nuclear Exorcist, except Don didn't engineer it. This guy Joey P did, and he was a fucking pothead and a fuck up pillhead. And fucking he didn't seem to give a fuck as much as Don did. So it didn't sound as good as Birth Variation, but I thought the songs were better. And by now I've done pin pal and trades with every band. So we're getting offers to start doing stuff. And now you start getting to the Michigan Death Fest and the Day of Death are starting to come, hey, we're going to be playing with Autopsy, and that band from overseas, Disharmonic Orchestra's coming over, and Cannibal Corpse, which was Beyond Death, and Jack Owen. I used to write him in demos, and we knew everybody. Immolation used to be Rigor Mortis, and blah, blah, blah. And we're just fucking, now we're part of what it is. We're the Virginia version of, everybody else.
So 89, when you guys played your first show, it was 89, but you also had your son in 89 too, right? Is that when your son was born?
It sure was. I never forget it. I was actually doing this little side band for fun at the time called Undertaker. And I took a break to call my girlfriend to say, what time we were going to finish and when she could pick me up. And she says, well, we're having a baby. I said, we are? She goes, yeah, when I fell down and I was dizzy the other day and I fell down the stairs. She goes, that was my blood pressure. It was dropping too low. I'm pregnant. And I was like, wow, because it was unexpected. But I was like, okay, let's go for it. But I'm a fucking heavy metal fucking freak. I don't know, I don't know how to take care of myself yet. And, my son was born in June 22nd, 1989. Kingsley the fourth, but we kept his mother's name Samuelson because we weren't married. So Kingsley Samuelson.
And it's funny when I was reading some of the stuff with you, like there was this, can you tell that you stole the Pac-Man machine out of a hotel also?
Oh yeah, our first out-of-state show ever, really out of state, was Pittsburgh. We went up there. I became really good friends with Terry Weston from Dream Death. Then they became Penance. We went up there to play. It was supposed to be us, them, and Revelation. So it was 2 Doom bands and Deceased. And
what'd you guys play at?
And I was like, met all the people. I met like Sharon from Decatur, and I met like Sam from Hideous Mangalus, and Don from Nunslaughter, and Greg Beal, and all this back then. And they were very relaxed, laid back people. And we were really like, it was like we were bringing fucking death on earth to them. Because they were like, these guys are crazy. They could hang with Immolation or Revenant and stuff, but we were just the craziest of the bunch. Because we were like, fuck it, we're going to steal everything the whole weekend. Where's your money? We don't need money for beer. We just walk in and take it. That's what we do. And they were like, man, these guys are crazy. So yeah, we were in a hotel, and I saw a sit-down Pac-Man. I said, I want that motherfucker. So we were on the second floor. I opened the window, and I tossed it out. It went on the grass, so it didn't break. It was to sit down. It was like fucking couple $1,000 item. And then I was like, I want that fucking microwave too over there. And I took that and threw it out. And then we were doing what we used to do. It was called CDing. We'd go steal and get these CDs and trade it in for when I was drug addict for that. But now it's just to have money. And we did routes, and our route then was Pittsburgh. I was like, we're going to stay in town an extra day and steal from the mall and make money. And we'll come back. And we had a place we traded in and got like $5 a CD for. So the deceased guys took it back. And by the time I got home, they were all still smoking and dope heads and shit and, weed heads. I got back. They busted the fucking coin thing, stole all the quarters out of it to buy weed. So it was pretty fucked up. I didn't know how to fix it. My girlfriend's dad offered me $1,000 for it, and he fixed it. And he's probably not alive now, but he had it for a long time, and it's probably still in her possession to this day.
Because you were making. I obviously I've heard. You were like you said, stealing CDs. You were stealing. Didn't you like bust a guy in the face with a tuna can at a 7-Eleven once when you were stealing tapes?
Yes, I did. This guy, this fucking dude was just like, I know you stole something, and I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. It's like, put it back. I'm like, this motherfucker here. So it's tuna fish. It was in my pocket. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. So I looked and I threw it and I busted him in the face. Me and Mark walked out. They got Mark's license plate. The police called Mark the next day. Mark was like, I don't know. And I think if this is the same story, at some point, Mark's like, all right, here he is. Talk to him. I don't know if this was the tuna fish caper, but one of the times, talk to him. So I'm like, dude, fuck you, you fucking lame ass. Fuck you, dick detective. Come fucking find me. Fuck you. Click. And Mark was just like, damn, dude. He knows my license plate. And I'm like, fuck that dude. You know, that's where my head was then. But yeah, it did happen. It just crooks, man. Just not a care in the fucking world, man. I go in there and piss in the aisles and whatever I want to do.
So October '87, you guys, like we said, did the Nuclear Exorcist demos out, and you're not like I said, you're not a fan of the mix. You guys did the one night in the cemetery, also in '89 at the Electric Banana.
Yeah, we had soundboards, and we really got a good one from there. And I was like, we got to put something else. I'll get the name out there. I was like, this is us. It's faster. It's raunchier. It's how we are live. So we put that. We just threw it out there for fun, and it was to make $5 more because we were ready to make some T-shirts.
And you guys were also offered a spot on the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death comp, where that actually didn't work out though, right?
It never happened. It was on Relativity Records, you know, kind of what everybody was doing. Combat was part of that. And it was supposed to be like a sampler of upcoming death metal bands, and we were included on it. So we went back in and remixed Planet Graveyard from the demo, Nuclear Exorcist, and nothing ever came of it. So we held on to that track till a little bit later when we did the Gut Wrench 7-inch. We're not there yet.
And you guys did another demo. You guys did a fourth demo, and you guys did a 5-song demo that you guys never released also.
Yeah, it was. I had a false text or something similar. It sounded like absolute shit, but it was 5 new tunes. It was Fading Survival, Feasting on Skulls, Terrifying Specters, a song called Industrial Tumors, and what was the 5th one? Experimenting with Failure. Those were the 5 new ones. And we were going to cut a 4th demo, but around this time, this guy, Matt, who was a pen pal, started saying, I'm working on a record label, man, and I want you guys to be my first band to sign with. I love Deceased. So I kept that in the back of my mind. We got a little bit of interest from Nuclear Blast side label. A guy named Slatko Dolick had a label called Gore Records. He'd put out some stuff, some Florida bands, too, and things like that. And he was looking into doing something with us as a 7-inch. I think he did Macabre and some stuff like that. But he ended up dying. And so that didn't come through. And then I just waited to hear back from this guy, Matt, and that kind of faltered for a while. And this demo it was unfit for anybody to have except for us. It was horribly recorded. Worse than Evil Side.
And that pen pal was Matt, who basically formed Relapse,
Matt
right?
Jacobson. Yep. He was in Colorado then.
And at this time, you're off the drugs and stuff, but this is when this is when you start drinking a lot, right? This time period,
this girl, we were at this place of all names, the Kingsley Commons was what it was called. The apartments were called the Kingsley Commons in Loman's Plaza. Maybe you remember that from Virginia, right off of Route 50. We were down there one night and everybody's drinking. She goes, come on, just have a couple drinks. She's like, come on, man, just party with us. All right, next thing I know, I'm fucking shit drunk playing this game called Chandelier, shit drunk, fucking all over girls and having a blast, and here comes that extremity of me coming out again. So yeah, that happened on a whim. Never wanted to go there, but went there and then stayed there for quite a few years.
That same time period, right? You and Doug start basically disagreeing on things a little bit, and is like you guys start doing shows? You guys did some gigs as 3 pieces at that time period too.
Yeah, I mean, Doug. The guy, he just went. I don't think he ever came back from the accident. He went through such hell with that accident, and he was in a situation now. He didn't have a brother. The brother lived with him and his mother. He didn't. His father didn't live with him, and his mother needed help. So Doug had to work. Doug had to, he was driving pizzas for Domino's and trying to make money with the band. We had nothing. We'd barely even had a T-shirt yet. And so he was kind of in a financial thing. And then he started getting into more Guitar Hero type stuff, Joe Satriani and stuff. And he wanted to add some of that to what we were doing. And we just, me, Les, and Mark didn't really want to do that. He did. And I sort of knew everybody at the shows because I was the guy doing all the pen pal stuff. So I was the focal point for the guys at shows and stuff. And he just kind of started doing his own thing. He still wrote great riffs and all that stuff. And when it came to the music, we were still locked in, but we weren't really spending much time together at all at that point, me and Doug. But me, Mark, and Les were. And, then he just started not wanting to do it anymore. And I think the way he went about it was kind of weird because we were getting ready to go play a show in Buffalo. And he's like, I'm not going. We rented the van. We're right there. I'm not going. Last second, we went and played a 3-piece. This and that a couple times. And he He just didn't want to do it anymore for whatever reason. Me and him, it's a shame because we were best friends for quite a few years then. That 5-year run, it was a great, I love that dude for that time. I mean, it's part of my life, but we didn't see eye to eye anymore, and he just figured it was best for him to move on and do his own thing and, get on with his life and help his mother and do what he had to do over there. And we just wanted to play heavy metal.
And that led to basically, Luck of the Corpse. But you guys first you got like no budget from it. You're hooking up with Relapse at this time, right?
Yeah. So Matt got in touch. He's like, I'm moving to the East Coast with a guy named Bill Yurkowicz. We're going to be out of Millersville, PA. We want you guys to do a record, but we don't have any money to record it. But if you do it, we'll put the CD out. And we were like,
you're the first band with Relapse.
It was Relapse. And I was like, well, what about vinyl? Well, we'll see. Because we were like, at the time we were like, if you do a CD, it's not really an album until it's on vinyl. That's how we were.
Yeah.
And we were like, it's important to us. Okay, we'll see what we can do. So then he said, well, why don't we do a 7-inch? You've got that Planet Graveyard thing. Why don't we get a 7-inch to get a little bit of capital going? We can make a shirt maybe, and we can start getting a little bit of money for Luck of the Corpse. Well, they never did get money for Luck of the Corpse, but we did get the 7-inch out and made our first shirts with them. Gut Wrench. And that was weird because if you listen to it, all 3 songs, it's different. One of the songs is Planet Graveyard, which includes me, Les, Mark, and Doug. If you listen to the live side, one song is me, Mark, Les, Mike, and us 4. And then the other one is just me, Les, and Mark as a 3-piece playing. So each one's a different thing. But Mark was going to an internship for recording. And he knew a guy named Frank Martian. And he said, you guys, I can get you in here dirt cheap, but you got to record it like midnight till 7:00 in the morning. You got to run Lithuanian hours.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that.
So we basically said, okay. So we were in there 6:00 in the morning. I'm like, gut wrench. And I'm trying to play as fast as possible. Me and Doug aren't really talking so much. Things are weird, but we're getting the thing done and the thing gets done. And we don't even have money to totally pay off for back then you're doing reel tapes, you're doing the fucking 1/4-inch tapes and all that shit. And it's expensive. So they held on to that forever till we paid it off. And then during
you guys paid that yourselves, right? $2,500, I believe. You guys paid that yourselves.
Yeah. It was. I think. It was something 21, something close to those numbers. And it took a while. And that time, Doug left the band after we recorded. He left before the record was even out.
And that's when Smith enters the picture. How did you know him?
Mike Smith, the first time I ever saw Mike Smith was at an Exciter Merciful Fate show that I remember. And he goes, dude, he's looking at me with my patches, Trouble or something, and he's got some shit, Man of War. And we just start talking, and we're both waiting in line to see Merciful Fate and Exciter. It was a Sunday, 5:00, underage fucking thing in Maryland. And we became friends, and he would come see us play some shows now and then. I'd call him, hey, you want to come see us play? He's like, I'm mowing the grass, but I'll come afterwards. He'd come down, check us out. So Mark goes to me, well, who do we want to get to replace Doug? And I said, I don't know. You got any ideas? He goes, what about that guy, Mike Smith? He plays guitar in a band called Recalcitrants. And I said, let's try him out. So he came out, and immediately we went to we were practicing in Woodbridge at the time at our friend Dennis's. And he came in, and we did like Living After Midnight and Rothschild or something like that. And we were like, okay. We went out, had a couple pizzas and some sodas. And we're like, you're in, dude. And then he immediately just took off, picked up where Doug left off, and we became like, now it's us 4 against the world.
And Luck of the Corpse, that kind of name summed up what you guys had dealt with, right, to that point, just in general?
Doug came up with that name. Doug said, every time something we were going to play a party one night in McLean, and the cops came right before we were going to play. And Doug goes, it's the fucking Luck of the Corpse, man. Fucking the accident, this, your fucking drugs, this, that, this, the other thing. It's the Luck of the Corpse. And I said, if we ever do a record, man, we got to call it that. And then we left it at that ever since. And then as far as the album cover for that, I wanted to do something different because at the time, all it was the Dan Seagrave stuff was taken off and all that. And I was like, let's just be ourselves and have our own personality and not just be, another block in the fucking tic-tac-toe board. Let's just be ourselves. And we just literally, I love that movie. I love that picture. I taped that off of TBS when I was like...
That's 63 that came out, right? That movie, 63 or 60?
I taped it off of like TBS cable in like 1982. It was on like the movie, and I taped it. It was grainy from my copy on 6-hour speed to begin with. And then Mike's wife took a picture of the TV, and there it was. And
It's a
I
great
guess
cover.
it's iconic for us because it's still everybody's favorite one.
It actually hangs over my head over right here on this bat. I have a banner of it hang over my head.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Hanging over here for me.
Yeah, it's a great cover. You guys do that, and you guys actually sold like 25,000 copies of that.
Well, according this is all speculation here. We'll try to figure this out, and I'll just give you the best I know. They were pushing us to play shows and all this stuff, so of course they're like, "Oh, these guys are as big as fucking Donnie and Marie. These guys are huge, this and that." So they put these numbers in there. Currently, their album has sold 25,000 copies. Whether we did or not, I don't know. I don't think it was that many. But I think it was way more than eventually when we were against odds with each other, what they said it was. But it did good. We never saw nothing from that. I mean, we paid for the recording. They paid for the pressing. We figured when it was said and done, if they, let's just say they sold 10,000 copies. Even if you gave us $1 a fucking disc, it's 10 grand. I want to say we each got one check for $1.81. I don't have mine, but I think Mike Smith might have his, and that's all the money we were ever paid by Relapse. Okay.
Back then, that would buy you a McDonald's cheeseburger. These days, it would not.
or as Tony what's his name? Tony Monero from Saturday Night Fever's dad would say, $2 won't even buy you $1.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys. Was that the same year? So you guys start doing, you're doing the shows. You were supposed to play a show with Overkill, and I think they bailed on the show, and you guys actually played with some locals. What happened?
Yeah, Doug was actually still in the band then when that happened. But yeah, we were now fucking working our way up. Now we were playing the clubs. We were getting the first, the good spots. We were the one. Tons of people showing up. We were playing any and everywhere. Everybody would come out. We were getting this big buzz about us, just not in the world, but in the local heroes scene of Virginia, D.C., Maryland area. We were a big fucking deal. And to some people that were real musicians, because we were just white noise to most of them. I was a sloppy drummer. The leads are out of key, whatever the fuck they would say. And we were getting to play the clubs they couldn't get in with their Rush and, that kind of shit, just because popularity of the time was just, we were lucky. And so basically from there, we didn't know what we were going to do next, but we got an offer to go to the West Hall, which was the big place, and it was with Overkill. And we put shit everywhere, and everybody's like, I'll be there. Everybody's going to be there. We're going to sell this place out, and we're going to have people early for Deceased. We show up, and the guy's like, Overkill won't play, man. They won't play. They said the stage is fucked up. And I'm like, the stage is fucked up. Every fucking band that comes through here plays it. There's no problem with this, but they wouldn't play. They left. So we made emergency phone calls to some local bands. They came down. We all played the fucking thing. And I think I called Overkill a bunch of, cocksuckers that night and go polish your limo or some bullshit, But yeah, that was one of the very first big ones. That happened a few times to us.
Well, you guys.
To play a show with Rigor Mortis, they canceled. So to play a show with Anna Crucis, they canceled. It was weird. I don't know if it was the luck of the corpse or what, man. But it was well, it was like that. But we were doing really good locally for ourselves. And then when Mike got in the band, we got our big fucking opportunity was Luck of the Corpse eventually came out. We did a record release show at the old 930 Club in DC. Now that was the place to play. Okay, that was the place to play. And we got to headline that shit. We invited Incantation down to be our support for that. And we pretty much sold it out. And it was insane. A video of it surfaced years later by an old friend, and he gave it to me, and I was like, wow, because I had the soundboard so you could match it up. And it was an important part because it was a big step for us. But then we got to, and you probably remember the Bayou?
Yes.
The Bayou was, did you know it too, everybody? Okay. The Bayou was the biggest. That was the one where, and we got asked to play with that band Silence, which was Necrosis, which the guy Jason, we didn't let try out on bass, was in Silence now. So they gave us a chance to open up the show. Well, we went in saying, you know what? Silence are good guys. We like them, but we got to blow their shit away. We got to get people out here. It's got to be about Deceased. So all our fucking friends showed up, and we fucking packed this place, and 80% of them left after we played. And when it was over, they had a manager named Matt, and he said, we got to talk, man. You guys, they were very impressed with your turnout for you guys. Okay. So in a couple weeks later, we're headlining the place. Now we can book our own friends bands to open. And we go on a fucking tearing spree for like the next 2 years. We're playing there like every 6 weeks. Every time it's packed. And they had this one time they did it over a holiday. I can't remember which holiday it was, but it was hot as shit. It was something over the summer. And we sold it out. And we were the only club on the whole on the whole East Coast circuit, they said that did good numbers that day. So we were in this place great. We were in it so fucking good. So we were the biggest. We were pretty much the biggest metal band in the area. So we were getting our friends' bands that were coming up, like Abominog and Morbius and other, friends, Medusa, Thud. It was a bunch of bands we helped out. We could say, hey, all right, we're going to come play, but I don't want you to pick two bands out of some, bullshit that doesn't even go with us. We'll bring our own bands and we'll make the money for you. And that's what it was. So that's where we were then locally.
And you guys had dealt with, I know, obviously, you guys played Michigan Death Fest in '90 with Ex Mortis and Fatal, Sacrifice, Nuclear Death, Lucifer's Hammer. But that was also the Morbid Angel show, right?
And Morbid Angel,
I mean,
right?
Yeah. So, so what you weren't allowed, first of all, you weren't allowed to hang a banner up? Was this the same
We got
gig?
there. I knew Metal Mom from Pen Pal. She's a great person. She's still around. I love her to death. She booked the show. Okay, we got there. It was in a hockey arena. We walked in. She was in tears. I said, what's wrong? She goes, the guys in Morbid Angel are just being terrible to me. Just fucking terrible. And I immediately saw Trey say, you got 45 seconds to get my coffee over here. We're fucking walking, lady. And I was like, what the fuck? So I didn't like him from the get-go. Now, just to do a little back note, this was at 90, 2 years prior, around 88, I got a call from Richard Brunelli, who was on a speakerphone call with the other guys in the house, Dave Vincent and Trey Azagoth. I was asked if I wanted to try out for Morbid Angel on drums. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. I've got my own band, my own friends. We're going to make it or break it together. I wish you well. And I told him, why don't you try to call Chris Reifert on Autopsy? Maybe he's interested. And whether they did or not, they ended up with Petey from Terrorizer, who knew Chris Reifert. So somewhere, we're playing the fucking Kevin Bacon game, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And so basically, I don't know if they took offense to that 2 years prior or not, but Dave Vincent goes to me, he goes, King Fowley? I said, yeah. He said, come here. And I walked over and he goes, I see you're trying to hang your banner. You won't be hanging your banner tonight. I said, yes, we will. He says, no, you won't. I said, yes, we will. And he goes, what's the big deal about your banner? I said, Morbid Angel's a name. How did you become a name? Because you got your fucking banner up. People know who you are. We're here to fucking play, and we want to have our fucking name up when we play. And he actually was pretty cool about it because he was respectful and like, I like your fucking spunk and this and that. And he actually helped us hang the banner up after that. So we got it up and we played and we had a great time. We got lucky because our guy from our local DC was a guy named Chris Kozlowski. And he did sound for like The Obsessed and Trouble. He was on tour with all these bands. He just happened to be in town and he goes, dude, you guys are up here. He goes, I'll gladly do your sound for nothing. The sound was horrible, fucking festival sound for the whole thing, but we had him, so we had a better chance at a better mix, and we did. And by the end of the night, everything was fine with Dave, and I never had a problem with Richard, and Petey was fine, but fucking Trey was an asshole. He was a fucking prick, and I told the guys, I don't like this guy. He's a jerk. I don't ever want to be like these guys. I don't want to be like egos and shit. We're in the underground, and we made good peace, and we were already friends with Lori and Nuclear Death, Phil and Joel, and those guys, and Fatal and Sacrifice, where I thought blew Morbid Angel off the fucking stage that night. We're fucking nice guys, and we had a great time. We just said, hey man, we want to be here and be part of the fucking underground. So it was a great experience for us, and that was kind of like that night. We did a Y, so to speak. We didn't want to go this way. We wanted to go this way. So that's where it kind of, that stance really took form, and I became known for the next, well, maybe till what's the time right now, 9:46, that I'm a big loudmouth. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you guys weren't allowed to sell T-shirts there too, right? You had to sell it like a mile away.
That wasn't that show. We did sell our T-shirts at that show. We had no more problems the rest of that show, but she was very, very upset, Metal Mom, with how they treated her the whole time, and I watched it. And I wanted to just punch somebody in the face because I was that angst in me still. I mean, I was like 22 then, something like that. And I wanted to just, but I was like, I'm going to stand back, but I was not happy about that. The Morbid Angel you're talking about is coming. I'll tell it now since we're here. Years later, Dave wasn't even in the band anymore. We played a show at Coney Island High in New York. I got a call. It was Nile and Morbid Angel, and they said the ticket sales were good, but they needed one more band to top it off and sell it out. They said, we'd like it to be you guys. We can't give you much, but it's a big show. It's a good showcase for you. Do you want to do it? We said, absolutely, we'll come do it. Now, I told the guys, we're dealing with Morbid Angel. I didn't even know who was in the band at the time. I knew Dave was out. We show up. As soon as we get there, their manager, guy on staff, fucking Gunther, says, first you got to sign a contract. You cannot sell a T-shirt within 1 mile of the club. I said, what? I said, we're not really getting paid shit for this, and it would be cool to sell a T-shirt because then we made them to do it. Sorry, King, can't do it. If you don't want to sign it, you don't got to play. I'm like, we just drove 4 hours up the turnpike. We're here. And I looked at the guy and said, you want to fucking walk? Because this is fucking lame as shit. I said, this is fucking, I told Gunther, don't even look at me, man. Don't even look at me. And they're like, we're here, dude. Fuck it. We just won't sell any shirts. I said, we'll sell them later out of the van. Don't worry about it. So we went inside, got ready to do our thing. We were told we were going to play first. You got 35 minutes. We went up there. We had a lot of fucking people wanted to see Deceased. We did really good to the point people were like, one more song. And I saw Trey standing off the side. And I wasn't going to play another song because it wasn't our show. When you're the opener, 35 minutes, get your ass off the stage and let the band's, the touring act do it. And we were fine with that. He's going to the guy, cut him. He's doing this, the fucking slice your throat thing. So we go downstairs. And we're backstage, and there's some people we know, some New Yorkers we love. And we're like, all right, y'all want to hang out, bring some beers? We'll scream. It's Saturday night in Coney Island. It's death metal night. Niall's in the same room as us. They're getting ready to perform. They leave the room. They go upstairs. So we're like, Venom, fucking haunting the chapel, whatever the fuck. And we're drinking beers. All of a sudden, one of the security guards comes in. And he goes, the guy in the band in the other room says, you got to be quiet. You're giving him a headache. I said, what? You're giving him a headache. I said, dude, we're in fucking like 10 fucking foot of cement around us with a door shut and the death metal's playing through the ceiling. And you're going to say that? He goes, yeah. So Trey walks in and he goes, King Fowley? What are you doing here? I said, we're fucking playing, dude. I said, we're playing. I just saw you up there giving this fucking stop sign fucking thing. He goes, no. I said, yeah. And he goes, no, I just got a headache, man. Can you just calm down, man? Come on, man. So he leaves the fucking room. And next thing I know, it was Paul Bearer from the band Sheer Terror comes in. And I know him from a mutual friend named Rennie. And he goes, man, this guy's really breaking our balls to tell you guys, they really want you to fucking leave. And I said, what? What the fuck did we do? He goes, nothing. This is pretty fucking mellow, really. And I'm like, whatever, okay, so whatever. So then the lady running the show comes down and she goes, what's your fucking band? Deceased. You're a pain in my fucking ass. You're a fucking, what do I owe you? $50 for your shit band? Here, take this. Get the fuck out of here. You're upsetting the headliners. I don't know what's going on. Fuck you. And I said, you're a fucking cunt. I spit at her, threw the fucking money back. I said, fuck you, we're leaving. So we get up, we're leaving. We walk up, and people were in there. A lot of people partying with us. And they're like, man, fuck these fucking motherfuckers. Fuck this. Some people want to fight. Some people want to break the shit. I'm like, nah, man, we're just fucking leaving. So I'm like looking at Mike and Mark and Les. I'm like, you believe this shit? This is the underground. It's fucking a heavy metal show. And, they put a fucking leash on it. We're not breaking shit or bothering anybody. We're just drinking and screaming. So we're leaving. We walk outside, and immediately some guy goes, hey, man, can I buy that shirt now? Man, I really want to buy that shirt. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then all of a sudden, Gunther from Morbid Angel, he comes out right there. King, within 1 mile of the club. Remember what I told you? You signed the contract. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So we walked wherever the van was, and I got in the back of it. I said, here, man, just take the fucking shirt. I don't give a fuck. We get in the van. We're driving back to Virginia on the turnpike, and we're going, we never want to fucking play with them again. I don't want to be around that motherfucker. I had nothing to do with that motherfucker. Fuck that band. I hate that fucking band and anything to do with it, and I've kept my stance on that ever since.
Were you ever a fan of the Tampa bands, like the Dissects and Obituaries and stuff? Was that your kind of thing, or?
I'm not an obituary guy. I've never liked that. I've just something about it. I've never liked it. It's not my thing. Deicide, I like the drumming in it more so than the songs. Not really my thing either. As far as that, I like the death demos, and I'm not even big on Scream Bloody Gore. I've just never been that kind of guy. Some of the atheist stuff is kind of neat that comes out of there. I think for Florida, it's more like you can't see it, but now you can. It's like early Sabotage. I like, or the Nasty Savage. I'm just a heavy metal guy at heart. I really like some Gurr death metal, but most of it down there just doesn't do it for me. I appreciate the intensity and stuff. When I see these bands, I know they're all into blast and fucking have that was a time. It was the More Sound days, and all. But to be, I mean, nothing against any of them. I never had any problems outside of Morbid Angel with any of them. You know, I remember going down there. We played some shows with Pain Eater down there with that guy,
Pain Eater,
and
yeah.
we played with Burial down there a couple times, and Atheist, and we had a good time. We were down there, but to be honest, no, it's not really my thing.
And what do you think? I have to ask you before we move on to with the Luck of the Corpse stuff. Were you a fan of, like, now it seems like it's a big thing with the super groups, right? You see all these bands coming back with like one original member. Sometimes, I mean, even shit. Sometimes no original members. And it, is what is your thoughts on this? Because I know they make money. I know they get paid, and you see a lot of it now.
Well, it depends. I'll give you an example. Me and my wife went down to Virginia 2 weeks ago, and we saw Styx and Foreigner. Okay, that's roller skating rink rock when we were growing up. Okay, and they were fantastic. Now Styx has a few guys, J.Y. Young being the only really original, but Tommy Shaw has been in the band, almost, well, not even close to as long. And that's the original guy. Foreigner had no original guys that night, but they had, including Jeff Pilson from Dokken, who's been in the band over 20 years, and the Kelly Hansen, been a singer for over 20 years. I mean, I was fine with that, because I have friends like, I ain't really Foreigner. I'm like, look, I love Lou Gramm, I love Mick Jones, I love Foreigner. I grew up with Double Vision and Head Games and all that shit when I was a kid, and it's got a special place and all this. I said, but it's good. It's good. But then you see some bands, and it's just, you're like, man, that's just, it ain't hitting. It's not right. And there's some bands where it has to be, somebody's got to be there. Like, for example, if Sabbath came out and there was no Tony Iommi, you can't do that.
No.
You just can't do that, and stuff like that. But I mean, there's times where it's just me with Deceased out playing, and I got guys, and I know, being that we've been around 40 years, I've known for almost 20 of the 40 now. At some point, guys drop off, or they can't do it, or they're in a part where they're married and they got kids, and you got to get someone to help out and things like that. But if those guys that helped out and took over become the band, then most of the time it doesn't feel right anymore. But sometimes, like in the case of that Foreigner thing, it felt right because they've been there like 20 years is a long time to be passionate about being there and doing it. But
Yes.
I mean, it is what it is, to each their own. I mean, Deceased, when we go out and play, sometimes it's one lineup. We did a Bulldozer tour. We had to get two guys to go out that weren't, or just friends of ours from another band, and they kicked ass. They played bass and guitar because the other guys had to go to work. They couldn't take off for 25 days in a row. And I want to go play the live shit. So what, does that make me an asshole for doing that? I don't think so. Am I supposed to not do it because nobody can do it? We already did that back in the old days of me, Mark, Les, and Mike, because Mark and Mike had a lot of time when they couldn't go touring because of their work.
No, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and when you go to the Luck of the Corpse, that got delayed till what, 91, 92?
90, yeah.
Came out, and you guys did what, 13 Frightened Souls, and that was the first recording with Mike Smith?
It was. We wanted to introduce him, and his picture was on the back of the original Luck of the Corpse record. He didn't play on it. Doug got really upset. What's this Milli Vanilli shit? And eventually, all later copies of it, we switched it out for him. That was more of a, I don't want to say it was a dig at each other at the time, but Doug walked away from paying his share of Luck of the Corpse off, and Mike took his spot on that. So we thought Mike should get a picture on the record. The record label wanted the current band, not the band, and we accredited Doug, of course. But we wanted to get something new out, so we wrote 2 new songs. The first one with Mike, he wrote 13 Frightened Souls. Mark wrote Robotic Village. We did an old song, which is Planet Graveyard, and Nuclear Exorcist, 2 old songs, to say, hey, we can play that old shit right. And then we did Voivod as a tribute to one of our favorite bands. And we put that out there. We went for a better production. We went back to Inner Ear, because when we did Luck of the Corpse, we went to a studio in Baltimore, Oz Studios, that we never went back to ever again. And so we went back to Don, and now he had a real studio, like in an industrial park kind of thing. And we used Frank again, and we got a better sound, and that led to like Nuclear Blast putting it on Death is the Beginning, I think 1 or 2, and I think it was 2, and maybe even 3. And people were getting in touch like, oh my God, you guys sound so good now. You got a good production, and I like Luck of the Corpse, but it sounded like it was recorded for pennies, which it was. And it really did what it needed to do. And we, Luck of the Corpse eventually, I want to say this too, Luck of the Corpse didn't come out on vinyl at first. And then we were at a fucking festival in Rhode Island, Jim's Festival of Freaks from the band Jim Flem. And this guy showed up. He was a distro guy. And he walked in, and I was like, this dude's got fucking like 8 copies of Luck of the Corpse on vinyl. We didn't even know it was out. No one ever told us. We never got shit. We never got a copy. And so we bought all 8 copies from the guy. We're like, whatever you got, we're buying it. So we bought them all. So it was out on vinyl. And then when we did the 13 Frightened Souls, that album artwork, we had to license it from the Museum of Modern Art. That was the one album where we didn't have any input. We just picked something, and it just so happened I was in a book store and I saw something. I thought this could be weird. And Mark and his girlfriend, I think, were in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they saw the same thing. So we were like, well, it's a kind of a destiny to use it now. So we did, and then it came out on vinyl, and we got in trouble because we weren't supposed to deface it in any way, and they put deceased. I'm looking at it, that's why I'm pointing over here. They put deceased 13 Frightened Souls over the artwork, and it totally, canceled the contract out. But no, it did what it needed to do, and we were still playing the Bayou, and now we're getting out and we're playing more states, and we're getting to know more people, and we're just, another step up the ladder.
I think you guys played North Carolina that year, and I think
North Carolina,
Atheist
Delaware,
in Florida that year.
New York, New Jersey, fucking a lot of times in Maryland. Even went down to, that's when we went down to Florida and played with Atheist and Pain Eater and Burial.
And you also 91, 92. You're also filling in for. You're with Abominog, right? You did too. You actually drummed on those albums, right? The Dark Museum and Morbid Distortion.
Morbid Distortion was a live tape. We played a live show at the Bayou, and we just put it out as a live tape. And the thing, okay, so around that time, I decided to start my own record label. It's called With Your Teeth Records. Mm-hmm. I was using that stolen CD money to do stuff. And the first thing I wanted to do was an Abominog 7-inch. Chris Ustella, the singer, dear friend, longtime roadie before that for Deceased, had his own project along with Pete and a guy named Keith and another guy named Juan. And I said, we're going to record a 7-inch. So we recorded it on a cheap thing. And I said, I'm going to put the money up. We put it out. It all completely sold out. And then after that, they were like, well, Juan's not playing drums anymore. We need a drummer. I said, well, I'll play fucking drums. Let's do a fucking album. So we were doing an album called Dark Museum. Now, to me, I don't know where they stand on this now. They call it a demo now. When we were recording it, it was an album. But I think they didn't think it was produced enough when it was said and done to call it an album, so it became a demo. And it only came out on cassette because that's the only thing I could afford then. We couldn't even afford CDs, and we sure as fuck couldn't afford vinyl, which at the time, minus 7 inches, was kind of a, falling to the past kind of thing. But yeah, I got in the band with them, and I started playing drums, and I sped them up, and I arranged a couple songs, gave them a couple song titles, helped Chris with some lyrics. When we got out and played, we did a lot of shows with Deceased. And I also did the Tombstone thing at the same time.
That started in 91, right?
At the same time. And there'd be nights where it'd be Tombstone into Abominog into Deceased. I'd be up on that stage for 3.5 hours straight playing drums.
And Tombstone, that was kind of like what, a tongue-in-cheek? Because you kind of tongue-in-cheek.
How that came together, when we were practicing out in Woodbridge at Dennis's, one night, our buddy Jeff, who did a magazine called Death Vomit, he came out with us, and me and Les were there, and Dennis lived there. I said, man, let's try to play something like Sabbath-y, like Merciful Fate, and we'll call it Tombstone, and we'll just make fun of these stupid-ass rock star black metal bands of right now. Because we were, like, tired of hearing about all that shit. And so we went in and we started playing, and Les came up with this riff, which became the song called Transvection, and it was fucking good. I was like, man, this is fucking good shit. And we decided to cut a demo. So we went into Inner Ear and cut a demo, and I passed it out to a few friends, and some guy in Italy got a hold of it, and he goes, I want to do a fucking album. And I'm like, this motherfucker wants to do a fucking album of this shit. So we went and did an album, and it was like, well, what do we do? I said, well, maybe we don't put our pictures on anything, and I'll make up all the names. So I was Cross Turner Upside Downer was my name. And then you had like Keeper of the Brazilian Death Metal albums and just dumb shit, Urinator of the Holy Graveyard, all that shit. And we put the album out, and people fucking took to it. So we decided to start playing live, and then all of a sudden these 3 bands were playing all the time together.
Well, you guys did what? You guys did 2 demos and 2 full lengths, right? You guys did Those Who Satan Hath Joined, and then Satan Void. And you guys had Keith Assist from Glenn Blyle's Key actually sang on one of the records, or did like the intro to one of the songs from Glenn Blyle's Key.
Valerio?
Yes.
Yeah, Valerio wanted to sing for Tombstone the day I met him. He came along a little bit later. He was a King Diamond type. He was just, he was the showman. He wanted to get up there and just be King Diamond. So I was like, yeah, this guy's all about Satan and all that. We'll let him introduce us at shows, and he can stand up there and sing high parts on stage. We didn't care. We got a dude to play keyboards, and I'd spit ketchup. I mean, it was always ketchup. I'd take the bottle and spit ketchup. And it was fun. The music was tight as shit and heavy, but it was tongue-in-cheek, like you said. But yeah, he sang a high part on the demo, and then on the album, it was Dennis sang that same high part. But yeah, Valerio Costas, and he went into Ancient and all that stuff. He was a guy we knew. He was a local guy too.
You guys, I think what? So Tombstone played with Pugnant Stench, Postmortem, Human Remains, Skeletal Earth, like, and then you guys did that. And was that the same time period? Were you actually on the phone with Richard C. from Wild Rags when he got busted?
I was. I was talking to him. He used to be like, King, I got a bunch of shit. You want this old? I got an old Exciter, Long Live the Loud shirt. I think it's a medium, but a medium back then, that'd be like a small now. And I got a Seika poster. Remember her, the porn bitch with the blonde short hair? You want to get that from me? Because I knew I collected all this shit. And I was like, yeah, man, I want that Charlie's Angels. I know you want that. I'll shove it in the garbage bag. All right, I'm getting it together. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Comes back. I got to go, man. Fucking, I'm busted. IRS busted. I got to go. He hung up.
That was the end of Wild Rags.
That was Rich. He was a nice guy. I hope all that worked out. I don't even know what the hell ever happened. I know he went into jail for a little while. But yeah, I was booking all that stuff you were talking about. I got into booking shows, all the local shows. I'd bring in Pungent Stench, Corpus Ratus, fucking Human Remains, all those bands, Morgue, Macabre.
Corpus Ratus was killer band, actually.
Remember, fucking Vader, Suffocation. All that.
You did design too, right? You did Stay True, Stay Ugly, and Stay Underground back then. That was your man.
That was my second fanzine. I actually had a fanzine in the '80s called Morbid Terror. I did a few episodes of that, but it was basically it was really poor. It was like one finger typing kind of shit. Stay True was cool. I basically wrote it out, and my buddy Jim Hunter, who plays in Twisted Tower, Dire, and While Heaven Wept, he would typeset it all for me. He'd get it really nice and neat. And I'd, say what I needed to fucking say. I'd always have a Spoo My Shit for the Month page, and I'd review stuff, and I'd be honest. And, yeah, that was fun. I did about 7 or 8 issues of that. Stay True. Morbid Terror was like 3 or 4.
So during that time, Relapse is starting to make some cash. Actually, it was '93, and you're working on material for Blueprints of Madness. That album has a lot of influence from, I've heard you say, from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, right?
Yeah, we lost our place to practice, Dennis's house. We didn't have a place to go. We went out to a place in Chantilly, a storage unit, and we were going to write a whole album of 2-minute songs. We were going to do like 20 songs that were 2 minutes each and just crazy. And then when we were doing it, we're like, I'm not really feeling this. So we started taking 2 or 3 of those 2-minute songs and turning them into one song. And I was like, well, this really is the Blueprints for Madness because it's crazy how we're doing this. So it was everything in the kitchen sink. I was really into Emerson, Lake and Palmer at the time, so I was trying to make these crazy arrangements and Voivodish and all that stuff. And Mike was still deciding how he wanted to write and things like that. And we were all kind of writing our own riffs. It was kind of like, all right, I got a riff, I got a song. And we went and recorded again at Inner Ear, and we produced it ourselves, and it sounds like ass. It was done. It sounds like ass. Some people love the sound to this day. I'm okay with most of it except for the Mark's guitar sound. Really, his tone is awful. But I did like the record. I still stand by the record. Mike Smith can't stand the record. He always like, nope, not that. It's the only one. I don't like that one. But yeah, it was the Blueprints for Madness, and we were working on that for a while. And Relapse was taken off. Morphus was taken off for them. They had a few bands over there that were doing things for them. And they were kind of working their way up the charts. They moved from where they were in Millersville, which was out of Bill's parents' house, to an actual office a little bit further down the road in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
And when you guys were doing Blueprints, you guys were demoing a lot. Was that something you guys did often? You guys were demoing a lot of the material prior to the recording?
We would demo it. We had a friend named Moose who did it at his basement. We would just kind of like go with like, hey man, if you ever need someone to record you, I'll do it for $20 or that same old $20 in a case of beer kind of thing. And then sometimes we'd go in the studio because we got offered a lot of tributes from the Dwell records. We're doing like tribute to Sodom, tribute to Creator, tribute to Ozzy, tribute to Saxon. So they give us a couple $100 and we'd go in and cut that track, and we'd cut demo songs for the new record while we were there because we were already set up. So that's kind of what we did then. But we did like to demo the stuff at that time, and that's the only way we could do it at that point was, go to somebody's basement studio or go in Inner Ear and cut that track with that couple $100.
And then you guys were having also issues with getting touring, right? With Relapse, they weren't getting you guys on tours at that time period?
It was a little bit of give and take, I'll be honest. Mark and Mike were having a hard time getting off of work to do it. Me and Les were like, to push it, let's go. Mark and Mike were like, yeah, but you guys don't have these kind of jobs. When you come back, we don't have our jobs. So we were, friendly fire amongst each other. Like, let's go. Nah, I can't. Dude, I need my job. Come on, man. Fuck that job. Blah, blah, blah. And Relapse had not a fucking clue. They put us with a couple people that worked there. They got us nothing. One time the guy's like, yeah, man, we're working on getting you on tour with a band maybe you guys remember called Uncle Slam.
Oh yeah, Uncle
And we
Sam.
were like,
I haven't
Uncle
heard that in a long
Slam?
time.
It was like, yeah, it's going to be Uncle Slam. I was like, come on, man. That's like, it's like jump up and down, yo boy, metal shit. I was like, that's a terrible idea. And it didn't.
Say uncle or die.
Yeah, you know.
Well, we're gonna play a song from the Blueprints album now. We're gonna play "Morbid Shape in Black" from the '95 record, and this song's about like a PCP experience, right? You had
It absolutely is. I did a bunch of PCP one night. I was walking down the street. There was a garden at the bottom of this road called Wilson Boulevard. There was a big open rose garden, and I looked over and I saw these hovering things like spraying pesticides all over all over the flowers. Like this black soot was coming out of it, and all of a sudden I was like, I remember it was like nighttime. You could hear like chir 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 chir, like just night noises, you know, things in the trees and birds and bugs chirping, whatever. And all of a sudden, all the noises stopped and they turned around. It's like they floated and they looked at me, and I was like, they're all looking at me now. And I started running up the hill when I didn't want to look back, and then I ran all the way to the top of the hill. And when I looked back, there was nothing there. But so I always called them the Morbid Shape in Black. Did I really see them? Was it the PCP or a combination of a little bit of everything?
There you go. We're going to play that song now. We're going to play Morbid Shapes in Black from the Blueprints of Madness CD on Relapse from 1995. We'll see you back at the Tampa Morgue after this track.